So we'll start out talking about the Distress Halloween Seasonal. And I say seasonal because, again, this product that I'm going to demo is seasonally manufactured by Ranger, which means they do one run for the season. They let all the retailers know when they're buying that they do have a shot to just buy it up, and then once it sells out from Ranger, it's sold out for the season, okay? So typically, we have released mica stains in these 3-packs, and that's what we've done as we built the palette of Halloween and Christmas. There are 18 Halloween colors, 18 Christmas colors, and there's 36 colors total in the palette for mica stains. We also did crayons. They're distressed crayons, but they're actually a mica crayon. They have some pearlescent in them, very much like the mica stains. And I'm going to talk about a lot of different products and the differences, all of that. And then we have paste. Now, these two particular paste, these Grip Paste Crypt and Grip Paste Glow, these are seasonal paste. These are pastes that only come out this time of year, and then they're gone. When they're gone, they're gone. I would suggest checking too, because like my Grip Paste Glow was all dried up when I went to set up for this, which means I haven't done glow in the dark for a while. But I will say that last year we also launched the Black Opaque as a seasonal, and it did so well that it's now part of the everyday line. So if you're looking for black paste, I'm really happy that Ranger did that. So what is different this year? Well, several things. First off, the crayons, they are done. They did not come back this year, and they will not come back. So if you started your collection and you're looking to complete it, I would suggest doing that maybe sooner than later, because any retailers that have these crayons left, that's the only stock available. Like I said, they did not come back this year. It was a one and done. It is a challenge to get these manufactured because they are different than the regular distress crayons, a little bit more complicated. So they're cool. And I'm still going to demo them because I love them. And well, I have a tin of them and I've stocked up. So knowing that they were gone, I also loaded up. I'm like, okay, I'll take my chances that they'll last until I get to them. But that's one thing that is important to note. The other thing, as I mentioned, is many retailers still have 3-packs, but the big change that Ranger did this year is they are no longer selling them in 3-packs. Now we have gone open stock, which makes me, and I'm sure many of you, very, very happy. Because if you have colors of mica stain, I'll specifically talk about like Flickering Candle or Decayed or many of the favorites. In years past, you really had to either find a retailer that was opening up the packs and selling them open stock, which several retailers did, or you had to buy a whole nother 3-pack. So now moving forward, all of the mica stains will be sold open stock when the season hits. So for example, this year, they released open stock for the Halloween colors, but there again, it's limited. When it's gone, it's gone. And they're doing smaller production runs, because obviously as product gets into the channels, they don't necessarily need to be many, but I think it is great to know for makers that like a specific color, and maybe you use this throughout the year, that you can stock up on a specific color, all right? I see the chat just kind of going crazy. So just so we're clear, like we're only talking seasonal crayons, not distressed crayons as a category. I don't want anyone misled to like stock up on things that maybe you don't need, all right? So what I'm gonna do is just take you through and we're gonna demo. I will focus probably mainly on the Halloween colors, just because this is a Halloween live, but I also have my Christmas colors. So I did separate them as I was prepping for the demo, because normally I have them in, you know, Roy G. Biv rainbow order, but I was like, no, we're talking about Halloween, but I also have Christmas. You can really store these mica stains any which way you want. I prefer to store them in my spinner, but there is a tin available. That's the multi-tin. This is the one that fits the sprays and the reinkers. And I want to remind people about this tin, because we made this multi-tin. It also fits the flip top paints. For these taller bottles, all you have to do when you open it is just take your finger and just lift that out a little bit just to clear that cap. But they do work. Same thing when you close it. You just take this and you kind of push that in a little bit and close it. I've had, you know, just a few messages going, I don't know if this is right. It is right, because I wanted something that was more multi-purpose, that fits, you know, reinkers and mini sprays. It's different than the spray tin. That's a different tin, but the mini sprays and the paints. So that's really important. So I've got all that stuff over there. And we're going to talk about colors, and well, we're going to see where it goes. I am going to talk about the difference between these and the new Distress Spritz as well. So if you've been wondering, we can actually see them work hand in hand. But first I want to set up, because I'm going to get a little bit inky, probably a lot messy. So I'm just going to take that and bring out my glass mat, because that's what I want to work on. There we go. Oh, wow. Normally I'm not good with the whole placement, but I did good. I think I'm gonna have a little bit more of my craft sheet this time. That's good. Perfect. All right. So I'm working on a glass media mat. You can work on whatever you want. Just make sure you are working on a surface, because when we get into talking about the mica stains and crayons, this is a colorant, this is a dye, as well as a mica. I'm going to just take all of these out. That was just for the opening shot. I've said that whenever I work with something that has mica, and whether that's going to be spritz, whether that's going to be mica stain, whether that's going to be alcohol pearls, anything that has that pigment that settles at the bottom, if I know I'm going to work with it, I like to lay them out. Now, truth is, when I'm working on a table, like in my craft space, I like to have some type of tray, right? This just happens to be an old enamel, like doctor's tray, but any kind of tray, because this way it will keep everything from rolling off your table. So this is a good opportunity. You can find trays often at the dollar store. Maybe you go to Goodwill or whatever, but if you can get yourself even like an old cafeteria tray, man, it will save you from chasing these things that happen to roll off onto the floor. So that's what's happening over here when you just kind of see me reach in, and it will get very, very cluttered, all right? I also briefly want to talk about this. This is not an infomercial because this is not a Tim Holtz product, but I did mention this in the alcohol ink live, and I think a lot of you found it really helpful. I had this after I had heart surgery. I had trouble shaking bottles, right? It was really hard for me to mix, and plus sometimes, if you have carpal tunnel, it's a challenge. This is just a little gadget that I found, and I got so many nice messages. Thank you guys for that. After I shared this, which who knew? But it's just a silly little shaker that I got on Amazon. It's for nail polish and model paints. It's got little suction cups. There's many different designs and styles, but this is the one that kind of works for me. And you just stick it down. You can take any kind of bottle that needs to be shaken up. I'll take one so you can actually see it. There you go. That's got the mic on the bottom. You always want to make sure that the cap is screwed on before you do this. You place it down. It comes with these little rubber straps. You can secure it. There's like these little bumps down here. I don't know how else to describe it, but the little thing goes around and you turn it on, right? And it's just going to vibrate and it's actually moving this back and forth. There you go. See that? And that's going to help mix up the bottle. It goes really quick, but it's a quick way to mix up that pigment, right? I still just go in and kind of give it a little shakety shake before I go in and use it, because it does get most of it. But that's just a tip if you struggle with shaking bottles, and maybe that's one of the reasons why you don't like to use this. I found it very helpful. I don't use it now, but it's nice just to have. So I wanted to mention that just so it kind of lives also in a distress video, okay, as much as alcohol ink. So when it comes to the colors, and we'll talk not only about the mica stains, but also the crayons. Now the crayons, they are just distress crayons. They don't say mica, but any of the seasonal colors, in other words, the color name that is the same as the mica stain, these are pearlescent. So there's no other call out other than you needing to be familiar with the palette to say, oh wow, see, I see a lot of people in this chat that didn't see it, that need it. It's actually really helpful, honestly, for alcohol ink or anything you need to shake up. And so it is a good way to kind of get things going, and then when you use it, as long as it's on its side, it's just a quick mix and off you go. But the cool thing about these colors, let me bring it in. These are the colors of the mica stain. So mica stain, this is actually a colorant, a dye, with a mica in it, a coordinating mica color. I learned as we did spritz, it's not totally matchy-matchy. The ink in here, the dye, does actually dye the mica in here, so it helps with a better color, but it's not a white pearl. Each one does have a different color of mica that coordinates with the dye. But very important to know that this is a dye, a colorant with a shine. Very different than Distress Spritz. Distress Spritz is just the mica in a clear liquid. And these particular pearls, so it's the same type of mica, if you will, but these micas are actually blended to coordinate with the Distress palette perfectly. And the fact that they're in a clear liquid means that I can use them different. And I'm going to use them with mica stain, so you can see like, oh, well, I only need this or this. Well, maybe, depends on what you like to do. But you can also use spritz with mica stain. You might be thinking, why would I want to do that? Well, you'll see in the demo why. But that's the big difference, is this one has a colorant base, the other one is a clear base. But here's what they can do. They have a beautiful shine to them. You can use them in the bottle. You can spray them. You can also unscrew this and you can use a dropper and you can make a palette out of them. In previous videos, I've actually taken some and put them in small little bottles. Ranger sells the small little alcohol ink bottles where you can actually decant this if you prefer to use almost like a liquid watercolor. You can think of it like that. So you can paint these on as well as spray and you get the colorant, that ink color, and you also get that mica, that shine. So even though they come out seasonally, you can see that you can use them. Obviously, it is a complete palette between Christmas and Halloween. You use it for something really cool, okay? So I do love the fact that mica stains, I honestly didn't think I would be using them as much when the spritz came out, but I found when I'm doing backgrounds, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to put down some ink with that pearl and layer it with a spritz as well. Swatches, these aren't any new swatches. These are swatches that I've done before. It's just really cool to see, again, the color. The ink color was certainly inspired by distress, but it's not a specific distress color. For example, like Flickering Candle, it's kind of a blend between fossilized amber and mustard seed. You know, like Wicked Elixir, it's not Twisted Citron, it's Twisted Citron with a little bit of peeled paint. So the colors are kind of tweaked from the distress palette, but they're just a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to spray and get some crazy, crazy blends. This is the one I was talking about earlier, Decayed. It's just a great one. It has like this kind of goldish frayed burlap yum to it. It's cool. All right. So those are the mica stains. Then when we get into the crayons, this is what I was saying. And yes, I read initially like that it's sad that the crayons are going, but honestly, these are a nightmare to produce because of the mica. The factory just doesn't really, they don't like to play nice with us to get them here. So we honestly just couldn't deal with the frustration anymore. If you followed the release, you knew that every year that we launched seasonal, crayons never showed up on time just because that supplier was just impossible. But we at least got the palette. Just know that if you have them, you can stock up. And here's the great thing about that the crayons, again, have that mica in them. Maybe that you don't care. You know, maybe you're like, well, hello, I'll just use my regular distress crayons and then paint over with either mica stain or spritz. You can totally do that. But these often resist those liquids, and so that's why it was really nice to have a pearlescent crayon. You'll also see in the demo just some quick, easy ways to use these and why you would want them. They're great because it is a pigment versus a dye that's in here. The pigment in the crayons also allow you to use them on other surfaces, craft, black, anything like that. So the colors show up really well, but also so does the mica in them. They're cool. That's the whole idea. They're really neat. And of course, you can watercolor with them. So even though it's got that shine, you can blend it out. Now, when you blend it out, do you get the shine? A little bit. If I was watercoloring for shine, I would go with mica stain because that's going to be fluid shine through and through. But I still like the fact that all the properties that distressed crayons have, you can still do with the seasonal ones that have that touch of mica. Okay, now I feel I've caught you up. Now I feel like I've got everybody on the same page. So if anybody says, is this coming back with this? How do I get this? Well, yes and no. It just depends. Depends on where you go and how you shop. Okay, I'm going to push these off to the side as well. Look at that. Kind of a clear space. No, I don't like that shadow. I'm going to move that over here. Okay. So let's kind of get into talking about what we're going to do. This is a stack. You know, I always say when it comes to making that, I'm compartmental. I like to do a lot of stuff and do a lot of backgrounds and then kind of work things into cards. And so I always seem to have a stack of stuff, but when I saw this stack, I was like, my gosh, man, how long have you held on to this? You need to make something with it. So my goal this year is to put this stuff to use, but a lot of it was for the purpose of a live. Some backgrounds like this one I've loved, and I didn't do anything with it. I just like to look at it, and you know what? I'm going to keep it like that. I'm going to look at it, it's going to make me smile, and I'm going to set it aside. You don't always have to sacrifice a background that you really like, but this one is mica stain with that black texture paste. I'll demo this. That's going to be fun. But here's just a lot of different ideas of what I'm going to share today actually turned into cards. And I shared this, I think, at one of the Halloween hooplas, how to create these cards. But what's nice about what I'm going to share today is we're really going to focus on doing a lot of backgrounds, a lot of techniques. And if you think, well, what would I ever do with them? Any of this stuff, you can just cut them up and turn them into cards. You can die cut your backgrounds and have cool cardstock where it doesn't just have to be a solid. And you can have this stuff already pre-done at the ready. it's amazing how some backgrounds, like this particular background, I remember I hated this area because it looked like a bruise. You can see how it was getting really dark, but a perfect way to add a collage in one of your die cuts. And maybe, you know, my die cuts were already assembled because that was another day of, say, die cutting. So it does make things just really easy when it comes to making, but sometimes I just sit and you create and play. Like when I was doing this one, I remember this was just black cardstock with oxide on a folder, and I did that. And then I remember doing this one, and I shared this one with Distress Spritz, where we were just spritzing a little bit of purple over that, and now you have that, just kind of took this background and really amplified it. It was the same background, but this was spritzed. And then going through, I remember doing that technique, and then covering this with glitter, with resist spray and rock candy glitter. So now you can have a glittery cardstock. So it all started with the same background, and that's why sometimes when I do it, you do multiples. Like you don't just rub the ink pad on a folder and emboss one piece. Why? You got to clean your folder. So why not just have a few stacks and just go, okay, I'll do that one, and you've got several purples. Yeah, they all look the same initially, but then you can go in with different products and alter that version. So that's just, it's a great reminder. Metallic cardstock. I mean, there's just a lot of fun. So I'm not going to go through all this stuff because I'd rather just get to play. Okay, so that was kind of the inspiration for the play. And we're going to do some kind of spritzy backgrounds. Some things that I would suggest as we're working, because I know many of you now, which makes me really happy, demo along. You actually get your stuff out and you play while we're doing these lives, and I absolutely love that. So in addition to mica stains that I'm going to be using for backgrounds, I also like to incorporate some spray. So I'm just going to work with a little bit of oxide, just a few oxides, because this is going to be my dye. This is going to be the colorant. So I want some oxide to add some little chalky bits to the top of it. So you might want to get out a few favorites. So these are all oxide sprays. This is a different tin. This is the spray tin, but I don't necessarily need spray stain because these are going to act as my spray stain. But I love the oxide spray. It's going to give me some different color options. Jeez, I don't know what I want. I'll start there. Okay. So I'm going to have that. Then I already know I'm going to run out of room. There we are. You'll see it will become chaos in moments. Then, and this gave me the opportunity to just use these. They make me happy. I love these new Distress bags. Thanks again, Ranger, for celebrating 20 years of Distress with these. I just went in and I filled up a mini tin of some Halloween colors. Yes, I have all the colors. Yes, I have all the tins, but for the sake of the demo, instead of going through and flipping open all the different tins, this is a great recommendation as you're getting ready for the making season. Get out some colors of ink, even if it's not minis. Maybe you have your favorite colors of oxide or whatever. If you're in Halloween mode, go through your palette of stuff now. Get a box, get a bucket, get a tub, and just put those seasonal colors in there. So when you do have 10 minutes to make or an hour, you're not spending that time picking out those colors, the colors that you may use. It doesn't mean you can't go back in because you really want a blue or something you didn't get, but it does make it pretty convenient. And I like that the large one fits that tin, and I have my blending tool because, as I said, I still keep a flat blending foam underneath all of my minis. That's what I do. The domed foam I have on a spinner on my table, but every single mini that I have has a piece of blending foam underneath. So this way I have that matchy color. So I love that. That makes it, again, creative convenience. Okay. Then we've got pencils. So this one fits the pencils. I might use pencils. I might use white. So that's why I just put that in there. And again, it was just my shameless plug to show off the bags because I wanted them to show up in a video because they make me happy. I love this. I love the look of these. I think they're so good. Then grab some stamps. I kind of do the same thing. Grab some different stamps. They don't all have to be Halloween. I've got a couple Halloween, but then I've got maybe some alphabets, numbers, maybe some backgrounds that I might want to work with. Probably when Ted's ears perk up, right, when I talk about stamps. And then, as time permits, I've got a bunch of stencils. So I've got some shifters that I'll talk about and backgrounds. We're just going to have a good play. So enough blah, blah, blah. Let's get to it. So when it comes to working on backgrounds, use whatever it is you want to work with. I'm going to work with watercolor cardstock, so Distress watercolor cardstock. I'm going to work on Craft. That's Distress Craft Heavy Stock. And I'm also going to work on Distress black heavy stock. Those are going to be my papers because this will allow me to either use the bumpy side or the smooth side. And then of course you may see an occasional tag come in, right? Distress heavy stock tags. These are different than manila tags. They just have a different finish on them, but you use whatever you want. Use whatever papers you enjoy using. But if you're looking for specific effects, it has to do with the papers. Okay, let's see. Oh, Ted, my ears do perk. I know that. We see that in the chat, Ted. We know how to get your attention. We say 2 words, stamps or stencils. But no, I appreciate Ted showing up. Ted shows up for every live, and that's so cool. I see a lot of brands do that. Ranger, Sizzix, where that to me is so great that the brands just support each other that way. It's awesome. Okay, let's just do a basic background. I'm going to start with Distress Watercolor cardstock. I've got a heat tool because I'm going to be drawing stuff, and I'm going to work with a spray bottle because a lot of times you want to have some water that's going to make things go. Now you can work on an area, which I'm going to do because I plan to get messy. If you want to keep things clean, you can use some type of splat box or spray box, but just know there's options, and I like to do stuff different all the time. So I'm just going to start on the smooth side and just mist it with a little water. The reason I mist with a little water is because anytime you use a colorant and you can spray it onto damp paper, not soaking wet, it's going to allow that color to flow better, okay? You can see as soon as that ink hit, that color is already starting to flow just because there's a little bit of water on there. That's all. Doesn't have to be tons. We'll add more, it can hose it down, but I'm just going in with different colors of mica stain and spraying it on. So like I said, the benefit of mica stain, and even though these are laying on the side, I want to shake them every single time because I don't want to clog them. If you do clog them, you can try to unclog them by running them underwater. I've never been successful with that. So, you know, my advice is always have a stash of replacement sprayers. Sad but true, but that seems to work. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. A little phantom mist. Phantom mist is it's a really cool color. Think of it like almost weathered wood in the Distress line. It's that grayish, bluish color, but it's going to do a good blend here, okay? You'll see. So it just adds that kind of silvery look. All right, so right now I've got just a whole background of yuck. That's all right. Oh, let's do a little orange. Why not? Why not throw in every Halloween color just to start? Then we can go warm and cool. That's all right. I'll just put a little bit up here, kind of a little fill in the blanker. But I know that orange and green make brown, but hey, that's going to be good. Oh, this one's not even working. There we go. That's Jacqueline. Well, it's new, and it's not even, like I can feel it's not even grabbing anything. So I have a replacement sprayer. It's here. Here we go. I always have one handy. You want to switch it out for me, though? Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Mario. I'll use this one. Orange is going to be orange. There we go. Okay. So here's the thing. Once we have it, this is where the magic of Distress comes in, the play. And that is going in with water. And what I'm doing with the sprayer is instead of misting it like that, I'm slowly squeezing the trigger. And can you see those little like splatters that come out? This is what I love about the Distress sprayer. If you go slow, you'll just get these droplets. The droplets, they're a bit heavier water-wise. And because they're heavier, it just allows, see that gravity, that movement of the color? Could you just mist it? Sure. But I like the fact that I can just move my color and manipulate it a little different. See, I like that. And I think that if you just mist everything, you might have it just float a little bit different. See that, Phantom? Oh my gosh, so good. All right.
There you go.
Thanks, Mario.
Good luck.
Thanks. I do have a towel. I've got my ink cloth there. That's important. So that's going to be my first layer. And I'll talk about what you see with a mica stain when we're drawing, okay? Which replacement sprayers? The mica stains use the Distress replacement sprayer, so not the one for the spritz. You could use one for the spritz, but it's a different tube size, so I would stick the spritz to the spritz, but the regular Distress replacement sprayer 2-pack works with mica stains. They also works with oxide or spray stain, but truth be told, either one will work. They will. Okay, so the thing to know about mica stain is that you don't see the shine, and that's the thing with most mica-based sprays. You don't really see the shine until it's dry. So don't freak out when you're doing it that, oh my gosh, maybe I didn't mix it because I don't see any pearl. The pearl always comes when it dries because the ink, right now everything's floating together, but when it dries, the ink dries into the paper and the sheen, that pearl goes to the top. So there we are. So the beauty of this, as I mentioned at the beginning, it not only has the color of ink, but it also has that color of mica. So whenever that color goes, it takes its mica color with it. That's what I love about the formulation of these, because really, I've seen a lot of YouTubers, you know, a lot of DIYers, I'm not shaming anyone, where they're like, oh, I'm just gonna make my own. That's great, but what's gonna happen is when you spray it, often those two ingredients separate. Not always, but most of the time, the pearl will go one way and the dye will go the next. But having these colors, wherever that ink is gonna go, that green, see, it's gonna sit on top, or that purple is gonna sit on top, and that's what makes your background really intriguing when you use mica stain. Now the sludge down here, we can use it, we can get rid of it, you can do another background, it just depends. If you wanna kind of keep your colors a little bit more together how you have on the background, but you don't wanna waste this, well, you can mist this with water, because we wanna reactivate everything. And let's just take something. You know, a lot of people, if you're doing junk journals or art journals, you're really mindful of kind of using, you know, the leftovers. Most of the time when you use leftovers, it is leftovers, but it's still really cool. You never know. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. But you can get, look at that, really cool fall background. You can see, you know, I've got a little purple here, maybe a little bit of green. All right, I'm just gonna keep that little grungy background. If you wanna fill in the blanks here, well, fill in the blanks. Just take your finger, tappity tap, fill in the blanks. Because if you keep swiping this through, you'll probably end up mucking all of this. Who knows, it could be really good. This is probably the only time I would like leftovers, which would be creative ink, not food related. All right, I'm gonna just splatter on a little bit of water. So I'm doing the same thing, I'm just slowly squeezing, see, just to get those little drips. I'll show you the impact that little bit of water has. A little bit of water makes magic in distress. And the cool thing about this tag is zero thought went into it, right? I didn't have to pick colors. I wasn't, where am I gonna go with what? It's a cleanup. And that, I think, is where it becomes very serendipitous, where you just end up with, you love it. Why do you love it? Because you weren't judging yourself. You weren't saying, oh, I got too much purple here. Because that's what we do. We're in our heads. We're our worst critic. But when you clean up, you're like, well, gosh, not bad, because I was just gonna get rid of it. So here you can see that I've started to dry. This is what that water's doing. It's creating a whole different layer without adding any more color. You can dry it all at once, or you can let some of that sit, because when it sits, it's gonna wick a little differently. See how that brown is kind of moving a little differently? You can let it air dry, or we can go in and finish cooking it, okay? Melissa said she's not a huge grunge person, and that's great. I'll do the same thing with just color, just to show you that you can easily do that with some color. So I'll show you kind of a workaround, if you will. I'll say a controlled cleanup, let's call it that. Okay, so just gonna go in and just dab with the cloth. If I dab with a cotton cloth, it's going to do something different to my background, because it's not going to absorb all the color. It's still gonna leave the color there. It's just gonna pick up the sludge. If I dab with a paper towel is incredibly porous, and that will often pull up more color and give you white spots. Maybe that's what you want. I'll do that over here just to show you. So let's set this down. Let's clean this up. So I'm just going to use some water. Just use a cloth, clean that up. And that was just directly on glass because I was spraying. I didn't really need to use the craft sheet for that. And we'll just take some water and we'll do the same thing. We'll just drip it on. Now, if you struggle with squeezing this to get the drops, you can always spray it in your hand. Spritz and flick is what I call it. Spritz, flick. And when you flick, open your fingers so you have water that's essentially dripping off of all your fingers. Don't spritz and dump, because you'll get a puddle. Flick, open your fingers. And that's going to give you, see those droplets? Going to do the same thing, probably bigger droplets than what you get. We're going to let that sit for just a second. If we want some outlines, you can hit it with a heat tool for a second, but we're not drying it. What we're doing is we're going to take that paper towel that I mentioned, and now we're going to dab it with the paper towel. And you're going to see just a different look. See that color that comes out? Because this really pulls a lot, and it creates those white spots. Like I said, not a bad thing. It just depends on what you want your background to be. Sometimes people are doing backgrounds and they want it to be kind of bleachy. I like that a lot of times for a sky or a background. Other times though, I just want it to be part of my background and not look white. So that's really the difference just in what you use to dab, right? These are just flour sack towels. I buy them at Walmart, you can get them at IKEA. It's something that's not going to have a lot of lint to them. And I even know some shops are selling them now because maybe you don't want to go to either one of those places. And it's nice that you have some options. So yeah, even how you dab matters. So let's try to replicate this, because there was that comment about I'm not really a grungy person. And I hear you. I live in the world of grunge, so that is always my happy place. But let's just say you wanted to create this in a sense. Okay, we're going to take some purple and we're just going to spray a couple of purples down there, and let's go in with something a little, I'm going to find empty, let's see, I want Phantom Mist again. I could use Decayed. Decayed might be a little too, trying to stay somewhat clean because I'm still trying to stay in the world of Halloween. And let's do, we'll do, this is a dark one. This is a sludgy one, Ominous Twilight. This is like Villainous Potion in a mica stain. It's crazy. Okay, so for this one, I don't want a lot of it. So instead of spraying it, which I totally could, I'm just going to take this off and I'm just going to use the little tube and I'm just going to splatter some of it on. Why am I doing it this way? Like I said, this is a really dark purple and I don't want everything to be too dark. Could you spray it? Yes, of course you could. All right. But because we're all friends here, I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna use a little bit of spritz, okay? So this is peacock feathers, so this is going to give us some of that bluey turquoise to our sludge. Because like I said, we can mix everything together completely fine. Okay, let's spray some of that on there. So this doesn't have an ink color. This is just gonna add some of that teal bluish pearl to the mix, okay? Because remember, spritz is only the mica color. So you can't expect to see that bright bit of blue. If you wanted that, we would need to go in with ink, which we might do. Okay, so just like we did before when it was cleanup, we want to add some water to this because water is just going to give it more of that fluidy movement. Because it's all here and it's not broken up like the one before, this might freak you out, but you can have a glove on, do whatever, but like break up the party, okay? And I'm just going to wipe this off. If you have a tendency to just wipe ink off your hands, it's still going to stain a little bit, but it'll come off with soap later. But this way, I think it's just a little bit more kind of mixed up. Now let's take a tag and we'll do the cleanup. And we have a lot more ink here than we did for the other one, but it's still going to be equally cool when we do our background because you're just cleaning up some sludge. So this is kind of a controlled clean, but see how we're getting these mixes, these little blends that maybe you would attempt to do, but you would frustrate yourself because you're trying so hard to get this purple here and this here and make it look all mixed up. Super easy to do. We can do the same thing with a little bit of water. Just add some splatters. If I want to fill that in, because it's purple and blue, it's pretty safe that I can go in and fill it in like that. But there again, you can just dab it with your finger and fill that in. So let's just dry it up. And now as it's drying, while we want to create kind of this effect, we need to get it to start drying first, and then we'll go in and just add those drips, those bigger drops. You can even pick this up if you want the kind of that color see to run down. It's easy. Don't overthink the ink. That's the thing. Just do it. Just sit there, get out of your head, and play. Less expectation you have on yourself, the better. Okay? And let's say I want to have a little bit more of that peacock feathers. I do, because this is, like I told you, the purple is pretty dominant. But I'm going to add some of that. So I'm just going to move these backgrounds. I'm going to do it over here, just so you can see. So I've got, just right there, that's going to be just spritz. That's just going to be color. I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of break that up, add a little bit of water. So we're going to take this background and we're going to add just a little bit of that spritz to it. Okay? So you'll see in a second what that's going to do to this kind of purpley background. And you have enough left over to do another background. You can keep going with this. But here's going to be like the difference that you're going to see in here as this dries. When this dries, you're just going to see the shine of that spritz, which I think is really cool. And it's not going to be like you introduced teal to this background, especially if you were sticking to Halloween and you didn't want it too dark. Just going to dab. So I'm just dabbing a lot of that liquid off because I want it to be a little more subtle. Cool. And just look at that effect. So see, you still have your purpley background, but the benefit of spritz, Distress Spritz, is just going to be that shiny mica. So when the light hits it, wow, you see that peacock feathers. But your background is still very much the purples and the blues that you used in your mica stain. So understanding the importance of these products and how they work together, this is going to be your color, right? Your ink and your pearl. This is just going to be your pearl. And that's what makes it really fun to, you know, I would say when you have a new toy, don't forget what's in the toy box, because it's a great way that we can introduce things. So let's still work with this. Let's keep going. And we're going to add some other elements to it. So I'll add some, let's see, what do I want? No, I don't want any of that. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to take this and I'm going to add a little bit of blue, just because. I'm going to dip into Christmas, just because. Oh, I'll use Shiny Bauble. Okay, this one's got to be mixed up. So give me just a second. I'll put that over here. There you go. You can. Oh, bye-bye. Oh my gosh, do you hear that? I didn't have it on my mat. Here, watch. Oh, just bring it in. Here it is. It just jumped right off. That's why I love having the glass. I'm going to stick it to the mat. Thanks. Mario was quick. Mario's got moves like a ninja over here. Oh my gosh. There we go. See, that's why you need the glass mat, because this thing's crazy. Hey, that's what it is. I thought I'd be sly and do it off camera, and then this thing just popped and Mario like grabbed it in midair. Good job, Mario. Thanks. All right, see, it mixed it up way, way faster. All right, let's add some blue. Little Shiny Bauble. Perfect. All that for a couple of sprays. It is worth it in the creative space. Okay, gonna add some more water. So now we're gonna do a different kind of background than this. I'll keep this off to the side so you remember where we were and how adding a new ingredient totally changes it. Okay. We're gonna work with watercolor cardstock now, just because I have a bigger surface. I want a bigger background. And I'm going to print first. I'm just gonna so I'm not really dragging everything. I just want to do some prints. This is what you're going to get. By doing prints, you're able to keep your colors a little bit more separate, okay? Because if you drag it through, you're going to mix everything. Because wet on wet blends and wet on dry layers. There we go. That shaker gadget. Oh, that's from Amazon. Yes. Model paint shaker or nail polish shaker. I think it was a model paint shaker that I looked up. So I did love that. Okay. So that's layer one, dry. We're just going to keep going, and always check this. If this starts to dry, just give it a couple of sprays of water. You don't need a lot. We're going to go back in. Same thing. We're just going to dab around, because this is how we're building up a different kind of background. And we're going to dry it because I want these layers. So in order to get layers, you need to layer. Yeah, Shiny Bauble, isn't that beautiful? So that is kind of like, because I wanted some of that peacock featherish color, and I knew that the spritz didn't have any color, the mica stain gave me that blue color. So that's why you're seeing blue in this one and you didn't see it in this one. That's what I was saying about, you know, having a mix. Super, super important to have a mix of colors. And if you wanted something else, we're even going to add some, let's add some oxide spray now. So you can see, like, well, when would I use oxide? I'm just going to get that mix. I think I want to go in for one more layer though, just because I'm looking at this color staring right back at me, and I really want some of that to kind of show up. There we go. See, I needed a little bit of dark. It was too light for me. So just, you're only as good as your next layer. So don't freak out. Just jump right in. Okay. And we're going to dry that. Now again, I'm using a heat tool to dry, just so you see where I'm at. I'm about an inch away, and I think that's really important when you're working with stuff. If you want to dry, having a tool like a heat tool that just dries ink is very different than embossing gun, which diffuses and has a high-powered fan that blows things around. It's really important to kind of dry things off. You'll also notice when I'm drying things that I often hold this paper up. So see how flat this tag is and how like lumpy bumpy that is? This is lumpy bumpy because I kept it on the table. This is flat because, I'll show you. Let's go into here. We're going to do another layer. Actually, let's do some of this. We're going to do some oxide on both. I'm going to do a little bit of oxide. And if you don't have a spray, you could do the same thing with your oxide pad. Smash it down, spritz your pad with a little bit of water, break up the party to get bigger drops, right? So it's not so misty. And then we'll take this and we're just gonna dab a little bit in here. So all I'm going for are these little drops. You see it? Okay. Now I'm going to dry it. If you're able to dry your paper midair, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to hold it. You can actually set part of it off. But if you let the heat pass through it, and maybe you've got one of these little fancy grippers. I use this for embossing. They're little silicone hands, especially if you don't want to torch your fingers. But if you let the heat pass through your paper, it'll keep your paper flat. Now, I'm never worried about it because paper doesn't have a memory. So if that paper is curled up even like lasagna, it's still going to go flat when I glue it. But by letting the heat pass through it, see how your paper can just stay flat? Because when you dry it, when it's down, heat rises, and that's what creates bubbles or ripples in your paper. Okay, just going to dry that. Then just going to dab that off a little bit. We'll set that off to the side. I'll show you both of them in just a second. Then we're going to go back to this background. I think for this, I was going to use a little salvage patina, but I think I still will, just because it's here. It's looking at me. Okay, so this is one, again, we can just take the nozzle. We can just give it a couple of taps at the bottom, and you can splatter it that way. This is just going to give you more drips. So maybe you don't want to spray a color, and maybe you don't want to spray and run your fingers through it. That's just another option. You could use a splatter brush. Many ways to create splatter. This one I'm just going to dry. So the oxide spray is going to give us a different dynamic to this background. It is going to give us a very oxidized effect. But in order to oxidize it, I need to introduce water. Otherwise, it's just going to stay a pigment. So now I'm going to mist it because I still want to maintain the drops, but I need to mist that just so we start getting some oxidation. That's why it's sometimes easier just to spray it because you're adding some water on the sheet, but hey, I'm good with this background. Okay. So now I'll take a paper towel because I want to dab off a lot of that color. And that's going to be our background. So our oxide creates that really cool oxidized look. We've got the shine coming through. That's going to be when we added that little bit of not only mica stain, but we had some leftover spritz here. And then this one, look at all the stuff we have going on. We have ink here. This blue tealy color that doesn't really show unless the shine, that's going to be spritz. And then you can see like these kind of opaque purple spots. That's going to be from the oxide. So do you have to use this? Does it always have to be a creative casserole? No, it doesn't. But it's just good to know that when you're playing with stuff, get out the stuff that you have. Don't think like, oh, if I'm using oxide, only oxide. Or if I'm using mica stain, only mica stain. Get it all out and be inspired by something else. You know, being inspired by like a cleanup is cool. And a lot of times you look at a background and go, oh, it's not done. I haven't done. Get over yourself. It's done. Move on. Because if I get out my dies, this is going to be great to die cut. Because maybe I can die cut a pumpkin over here. Maybe I can die cut, you know, a little ghosty over here. Maybe I can die cut a moon. Like you can actually die cut different elements from a background like this where you already put down many colors. So it doesn't always have to be a stampable background. Make sense? I hope so. But just want to show that you can really do any technique with whatever colors you want. But in my opinion, the cleanup is always just unpredictably cool. All right, let's clean this up. A little bit of water going in. Okay. Now we'll talk about just kind of working on some background. So I've gone in and embossed some paper. So same cardstocks, craft, black, white, even one I inked the folder ahead of time, because working on embossed paper is also really cool. And we can ink before or after. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to have one piece of paper that we're going to ink and then emboss. And then I'm going to have some that we're just going to work on. Let's do that. Let's do that. Heck, let's do that one because that one's already inked. We'll talk about things. So all of these were done using different 3D folders. I like 3D folders for this because it's going to give me more texture to work with, if that makes sense. And what I'll do here, let's see, is I'm going to start with something simple and then my brain just short-circuited, so I need to go back and do something else. So we'll have a little creative diversion. I like that. First thing I'm going to do is just talk about working with crayons, just so you can see the beauty of working with them. The cool thing about these crayons, as I mentioned, is that they go on just like the regular crayons, kind of that creamy, kind of waxy look. You can smudge them just like the regular crayons, but you get that pearlescent shine. So what's great is that you could use these, and I'll just show different colors. You can put them right on your finger. You can go right over paper, and you can use it kind of like just like a metallic rub. So that's why I have a storage tin where that's where all of my crayons live. They don't live in general population with the other ones because they don't say anything different unless I'm paying attention to the color name, which I don't. Then I might have a pearl crayon when I don't want it. So I can work from the tip. Another way, let's say you want a lot of color. Maybe I want to take like gold or yellow. We can take the crayon and actually scribble it right onto the mat. If you're going to pick it up, clean the applicator tool. This one, you can just clean it with a little bit of water. It doesn't matter if it's got ink on it. The reason is because if you go in with purple on your finger and you go right into yellow, it's going to go brown. So this allows me to pick this up probably in just more volume, if you will. Just depends. I don't mind. I just like to work this way because it just allows me to kind of do my thing. I don't put the caps on these. I can go right from yellow to orange because that's going to be really interesting. And I'll do a couple of different things. Okay, let's do a little green over here. So now if I'm going to go to green, I just had orange, green and orange, make brown. As much as I love brown, not going to do it. And I'll take some green. I'm just showing you how you can apply these. So let's say you have a color. That's why I chose this really light color. It's a light green. It's that limey wicked elixir. Let's say you're doing the finger thing and you're not getting a lot of color. You can also take the crayons. That's why you see all of my pearl crayons are flat, because this is how I use them. I just take it and I like to drag it directly over my embossed paper. Really light. So see how that's picking that up? And then just go in and move that color around. It's just easier to me because you get more color down quicker. And then I'll even go back and just add that as a highlight. So see how shiny those are? So that was applying it, smudging it, and then going back and highlighting it. So let's just take this one. We can go back, we did that with a dark purple. We can take a lighter purple, again, flathead crayon. Now you know why. And I can just take that crayon and just lightly drag it across, little skippity bit. And if you don't even want to do purple, maybe you have all the crayons, maybe you even have the Christmas ones like Wonderland. I can go in and just add that. Let's see, Mario, this crayon method does not flatten the embossed design. No, I mean I just did it and it's still embossed. So yeah, that's the whole lightly going over it. Really important that you're not pressing down. Well, for a couple reasons. One, you don't want to flatten the embossing, which would be really hard to do. I mean, you'd have to steamroll this thing to flatten it. But the other thing is that we only want to have color. What? Oh, well, you know what I mean. Like, you just want it on the high points. See, like that. I just did a little bit of Wonderland, but you can always smudge it. That's what I love, is that, see how I can just add that little bit of blue onto that purple? Oh, I love these. I do. And I know people have said, oh gosh, you need to do the regular colors in pearl. Well, you already heard from the beginning why it will never happen. It's just the factory doing these, they are very complicated to have that mica live in this particular stuff, but it's really good. You can definitely stamp over crayons. You can stamp with archival or any permanent ink, and it is awesome. It's really good. I'm going to take another one. This is obviously a new one. That flat. All right, I'm just going to highlight this one just so you can see. I mean, it's super easy to do. Do you always have to use crayons? No, my gosh, you can try ink pads or sprays. This is just an idea of what you can do with crayons and how I often do it. And I don't just always work on black. So I'm showing you that just for dramatic effect, if you will. But you can do the same thing on a background, which we will. Let's get some of these inked. And then we'll add some crayons to it. Okay, so let's see. These are the backgrounds. Let's do this one. Move these crayons out of the way. So let's take some colors. I'm working on Distress Craft Heavy Stock. The cool thing about 3D folders as well is, look, see what you like. I mean, I know this is the way the design was intended because it's imprinted leaves, but you can also use the other side. If you like that side better, go for it. Same thing with this. If you don't like the fact that these are raised up, Look at that side where they're debossed. Very cool, because you might go in with some inks and metallics and go that way. So many options. Just don't be intimidated by it. Just go in and have fun. So I'm adding some colors. We'll start with some different colors of greens. I love this one too. So I think we did, that was a little bubbling cauldron. This one is specimen. This is going to be, oh, is this another one? Oh no. See, I think the other one worked too. I was just really hasty. That looks black, but specimen is a really dark green. Think like forest moss in the world of distress. We're going to take a little bit of, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I'm looking for it. Empty tomb. Crooked broomstick. Crooked broomstick is just a great brown. It's kind of like the brush corduroy, I would say. Again, shakety shake. Do I dare? I was going to put it in the mixer. I'm going to, but I'm going to, I just have to. Because sometimes, honestly, it just makes my hands hurt. So, just off camera. The suction cups make all the difference. That's why I like this one, just because, again, it just makes it easier. Okay. Now we're ready to go. We'll take some of that. This is going to be a little bit of that kind of goldeny brown. Then we'll take some orange. This is the one that Mario replaced. Let's see if that helps with the little jack-o'-lantern.
Good luck.
Thanks. Oh yeah, we got it. There we go. So this one I'm going to add some orange, but I'm also just going to go a little bit over. Just some, I kept my distance just to get more of those spritzes that way. And let's see, what do I want? My gosh. If you want like antique linen, unraveled is really cool. It's like it's a cream color, but I want something a little hotter. So I'm going with flickering candle. That one is great. Very, very luminous. And then I want a little bit more green. So I think I'll take some Wicked Elixir. So right now, I'm just kind of keeping my distance this time. So instead of spraying the color, which I've already done, now I'm just a little light touch on the sprayer and create the background. Now that I'm done with my color, well, in the first layer, I'm just going to start just drying this. I love this folder because you don't really appreciate its detail until you do something to it, and then all of that detail just happens. It's so cool. It's really great. Look at that. But see all those little drops coming in? And it's very shiny because everything was mica stain. So if you used mica stain for every layer, which we did, the whole thing is shiny. So that's another benefit. People are like, well, if I have the sprays and if I have the spritz, why do I need this? Well, because it's kind of those products combined. This way, when you add the color, you're not only adding the color, but you're adding that pearl at the same time. So your whole background is luminous, shiny, and dry. So let's talk a little bit about the mica now that I'm thinking about it, because I got several questions after, I'm just going to pick this one up real quick. I got several questions after Spritz about mica and its permanency, if you will. But first, let us do this grungy background. You never know what you're going to get. Cleanup to me is like one of the best surprises out there. Look at that for fall. I mean, come on. So good. We're going to just dry it. This may not be your jam. You may just be like, this is a hot mess. Maybe so. There you go. Ah, see? Eliza just asked the question I'm going to answer about the mica. All right, let me just dry this. Because if you like the way something is working, you want to dry it because that's what's going to keep its movement. But you see all this? You see this like leftover, which most people would just clean up? Most people, not this guy. This guy sees drips, and drips are opportunities. But this time I'm just going to, as if you're splashing in a puddle or like swatting a fly, because that's going to give me these little dots. Again, may not be your jam. You may be more clean and simple, and there's nothing wrong with that. You do you. But I love the fact that I have the ability to get some different effects, even from what is very much sludge. Now these areas, you can always go in with some water and just blend these out. So see how I just added some water and that ink immediately reacted and filled in some of that color. So you don't have to worry about keeping that white space. I don't mind embracing the space, but sometimes you just don't want it where it decided it wanted to be. So if I dry this, it's going to stay inky brown. If I dabbed it, it would become light, correct? So it's really whatever you want to do. Let's do a little half and half. Let's dry this until it's almost dry, and then let's lift some of it off to just create a lighter effect in the middle of that tag. Again, doing this because I don't want it to be totally white, so I'm just going to dab some of that liquid off and then go back and dry it completely. So see how I was able to maintain the color but still get that cool little drip. But great backgrounds. What do you do with a tag? I don't know yet. A tag might be a background. I might stamp because that kind of looks like a little sunrise. You know, maybe I'm going to have like a little stalk of corn, or maybe there's birds flying, or maybe not. Maybe it's going to be this way and it's like, you know, there's little silhouettes of ghosty people and this looks like a creepy tree. I mean, backgrounds are just backgrounds. A piece of paper it doesn't matter that it's got a hole in it and it's cut, chop it off and now it's a card front, or die cut this. It's whatever. Just remember that it's really about the surface and what I wanted to do with it. I knew that if you want to have the most creative play of any paper, so if you're a note taker, write this down. If you like to work in wet ink like this and you want to have the most creative play, meaning you can wet it, dry it, wet it, dry it, wet it, dry it, your best bet is going to be mixed media. Let me see if I don't have a pack of it. This is what these tags are made of, mixed media heavy stock. It's also sold in sheets, so you could cut it up for card fronts. But that's why you often see me work with a tag, because this paper is designed specifically for wet and dry techniques. This is the paper that's in Diane's journals. It's not as heavy in her journals, but the mixed media stock, it started out in her journals and I loved it so much. I'm like, could I do tags and stuff in it? She's like, go for it. I just wanted it heavier than what's in her book. But that's what makes these inks do their magic. So now let's clean this up and we're gonna get back to this one. Gosh, look at that. It's just such a great sludge. Cleaning that off. Okay, so what can we do with this? Well, we can leave it as is. We can take crayons, we can do that, or take an ink pad. And we can take an ink pad and we can go direct to paper. You can take a brayer. So if you don't want to go direct, that's fine. Some people, you know, may not want to go direct, and you might decide, oh, hey, I want to use a brayer and roll over the top. Now, if you use a brayer, you will probably steamroll over this, right? Because a brayer is designed to like apply pressure. You could be really light-handed, but it's going to take many, many layers, but there's nothing wrong. This brayer is too big. I'm going to use the little one. But I'll just show you that, you know, maybe when it comes to working with it, you're afraid that you're going to be a little too heavy-handed with your ink pad, or maybe it's you don't have an archival ink pad. Maybe it's something a little squishier. A brayer is good. Just make sure the brakes are off. This is a distress brayer. I'm going to roll and lift. And this will allow me just a little bit more, I'll just say, creative control, because I can go in different directions with that ink and I don't have to worry about being too heavy-handed. But all I'm doing right now is adding some black to the high points. There you go. So now the detail of those leaves just show up better because I did that. And archival is permanent, it's waterproof. So that is why I chose archival and didn't go over this with distress ink. If you went over this with distress ink or an oxide, it would wipe off. So let's talk about the wipe off. Let's talk about wipe off and mica. Okay, we're going to do a simple demo. We'll take a tag. Maybe I'll even use this sludge from watercolor. And let's take some colors. Okay, we'll take a little bit of mica stain. Maybe not. Oh my gosh. Why am I picking all the bottles that are brand new? I don't know, Mario. It's just how it is. Okay, I agree. The ink picks up the detail perfect. That's too dark. Get it together. There we go. These purples are like crazy in mica stain. I'm also going to do spritz. So I've got mica stain here, and I've just blasted it right on the paper, just direct, just so you can see what I'm talking about, okay? Same thing. Ooh, I like how a little uncharted, because what happened, there's like this little fine, I'll show it. A fine little airy mist of that mica stain. You can't really see it, but see those little tiny droplets? As soon as the spritz hit it, see how it activated the purple? Because this is Uncharted Mariner. Oh, see, that's a whole new technique that I'm going to explore. Lightly misting a paper and then hitting it with spritz? Come on. All right, I know this is nothing. I'm just trying to demo the adhesion of mica. And this pretty much applies to most products out there. I'm not going to say every product because I don't use every product to be able to say that. But I can tell you in the world of distress, and specifically when you're using things with mica. And I'll even do a lighter color. I want to do something, let's see, I think mulled cider would be good. Because I don't want you just to see dark purple. I'll do some mulled cider. That's going to be some orange down here as well. There you go. Okay, let's try that. So when it comes to things that have binders in them, okay, binder is really an additive that the chemist would use to actually bind a pigment, which is going to be this particle. It's not the color, it's not the dye, it's a pigment, so it's a solid particle. It helps it kind of stick to its surface. Think about that. These are designed for porous surfaces, for paper, for wood, for fabric, but it can't be every paper or every wood or every fabric. Some fabric and wood are treated. You know, we tried to get some wood shapes from the craft store, and I sprayed them. I'm like, oh, cool. And then when I touched them, all the ink came off. I'm like, what's going on? Well, that wood has been treated. I don't know what it's been treated with, but the fact that it's treated means that that can't really permeate through it. There's a question, do I need different brayers per family color? Oh, absolutely not. These brayers, oh my gosh. Super easy. I had the other one hooked. Super easy to just push out, and you remove the roller and you wash it. These are rubber, so you just wash it in the sink and then you can put it right back. You just stick that into the handle, you pull this out, and it just catches on there. These little feet are when you place it down. That's how, thanks Mara, that's how you store brayer. But yeah, if you have them together, they'll lock together like mine just did. But they are designed where if you were, let's say you were inking up your brayer, like on an ink pad, it's designed that you can set it down and you don't leave your ink on the surface. So anyway, see, shiny object. I see a question, I'm like, okay. So these have mica. Can you guys see that? Yes, yes, and yes. Not fully dry. Let's dry it all the way real quick. I just want to dry these just to show you what I'm talking about. Demos are important. I think what's great about demos that I study chemistry. I didn't study chemistry, but I've developed product with Ranger for 20 years. Everything from alcohol inks to mediums to distress, and they have in-house chemists. So yes, there's a lab with the guys in the coats and all the little beakers and all that stuff. And for years, I used to work for Ranger, and I would go out to their facility and I would just be in the lab and just ask questions like, why does it do this? And what if I do this? And can you do this with this? And, you know, they really didn't know why I was asking that. I was asking it more from a creative approach, but it definitely made me understand the product better. And I think it's important to share that knowledge when I demo, because like why something works to me is just as important as how something works, where it's like, oh, here's how you spray it, but here's why it's doing what it's doing. And here's why this product is different than this product. Just like I'm going to talk about mica. So mica is designed that when you touch it, it stays on the surface. So you can see, I mean, yes, my hand is inky. I'll try to find a clean spot, but there's no mica coming off of any of this, whether we're talking spritz or whether we're talking mica stain. It is dry. It is designed to have binders in it that adhere to the surface. However, following many demos, people are going into their work, and I'm not quite sure why you're doing this. Maybe someone in the chat can enlighten me as to why a maker would choose to do this when they're done with the background. But after you're done with the background, you're going in with a paper towel. And you might think that a paper towel is just a paper towel. It's really light. But a paper towel, regardless of the brand, actually has a texture to it. So think of it as like the finest grit sandpaper around. You don't think it, but touch a paper towel and feel that it's not smooth like glass. It has texture. So if you go in, even though this doesn't come off on your finger, but if you go in with a paper towel and you start rubbing these, that mica is going to start lifting. And it's not a lot, but it is enough that it's going to transfer. And then you're like, why isn't this attaching to the surface? It is. Nowhere did it say when you're done, go in and buff this with a paper towel, because the friction of that is removing those particles. It's like you're sanding off the particles that were binded to the paper. So you don't need to seal it. It's not going to come off on your fingers. I always joke, like, don't lick your work. I mean, it's water reactive. If you wet it, it's going to come off, but it's never going to come off from the touch in an envelope to the recipient's hands in a scrapbook. It's designed to bind to the surface. But if you go over it with something that is abrasive, even though you don't think it is abrasive, that's the issue that you're having. So avoid rubbing over a background with a paper towel unless you want to remove some of the shine. I mean, that is an option where you're like, ooh, too much. Like, let me go in and scrub some of that off. You can, see? The more aggressive you are, the better. So there you go.
Perfect.
There you go, Mel. Try blowing your nose with a paper towel. That is a perfect analogy right there.
Perfect, Mel.
That's it. But that was the question where people are like, it's coming off when and I'm like, that's impossible. It can't come off when you're touching it. But yes, if you're sanding it off, so to speak, it will. All right. So there's our backgrounds, kind of fun to create that way. So this one, I took an embossing folder, I took a 3D folder, and I went in and inked one of the sides. So I took the flat side, I took my archival ink pad, rubbed it with black ink. Okay, so that's hitting all that flat area, not the detail. Put in my piece of cardstock, closed it. So now the ink went on it, ran it through the machine, and when you do that, your ink becomes debossed. It stamps into those areas. You could do this at any time. I prefer to do it first before I apply the ink. I just think it looks better that way. But could you essentially ink a background and then run through with that folder idea? Yes, you could. But I like doing it this way because this is going to be a permanent ink. It's waterproof, and the fact that it's waterproof, it's not going to re-wet any of that. And it just makes for a cool background. I'll show you what I mean. You have many, many options for this. We can take ink pads. So maybe we wanted to take our ink pads, take a little crackling campfire. Let me find, did I keep the handle in the bag? What did you do with it? Holtz, come on. It's somewhere.
What are you looking for?
My blending tool, my little handle. Can you hand me a blending tool, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Little one?
Yeah, the big one, just a regular handle. Oh, here it is, thanks. Right over here, I put it in a safe spot. Okay, I'm just gonna take some ink, so I'm just gonna grab that piece of foam. Thanks, Mario.
You're welcome.
I'm just gonna work right from here. Just gonna pick up some of that color. Now, before I go directly to the paper, I am just gonna work a little bit of that ink in because that's gonna now become my palette. This is the craft sheet portion of your mat. You could do this on the glass as well. And now I can just blend over the top of this. That's one way to do it. I think that's a great way because these are dyes, so these are all going to be translucent. And by having the translucent dyes, they're never going to overpower that black that's in the background. So that's one thing to know. But I'm also just going to talk about how you can add the mica stains because that's really cool on this as well. Let's do just some other colors. Again, this isn't what I would consider like a finished background. It's just something I'm using for demo purposes. I'll just put the lid on. I won't need a lot of this. I'm just going to go into this one, kind of go down. So by doing the ink first, it doesn't really matter if I go off the road. So see that? It's kind of cool. It's really neat. So what could we do to this? There's a lot of things we can do to this. The first thing we could do is if we wanted our inks to be like really more explosive, luminous, vibrant, whatever word you want to give it, you can take a wet brush. Now you can use a water brush or you can use a paintbrush with water, either one. Just going to clean off my water brush. There we go. So this is just a brush that feeds water. Because Distress ink is water reactive, now that I've done that blending, I can still go in with a wet brush, and that's just going to bring all this color to life. It's going to completely change the dynamic of that ink. It's going to go from that very soft kind of faded look to a really intense, beautiful background. Now I did my orange first, and then I'm going to clean the water brush simply by wiping it off. I wipe it off till I don't see any color in the water. And now I'll go into purple because if I went from orange to purple, orange and purple make brown. You may like brown, I do, but for the case of keeping your colors, maintaining their integrity, just wiping that off is good. Oh, I didn't do that little orange area, but that's okay. I'll be able to show you the difference. Okay, so take a look at the different effect that we got just from, this was blended, but this was blended and then watercolored. That is a really quick way to watercolor, right? Because typically you would maybe start with white paper and a palette and like pick up orange and then try to like, you know, paint it on, which you definitely could. But blending and then watercoloring, all your color is already done. All your blending is done. And that makes it really easy to do. And the fact that this was permanent ink, we never have to worry about that black ink running or blending. I agree. This is my favorite my favorite water brush of all time, just because it keeps that detail point. It's so nice. Okay, if we wanted to do this with mica stain, could we spray it on? Sure, I'll show you what that looks like if we wanted to spray a little bit. Let's see, what color is not gonna work? I'll choose that one. No, I'm kidding. But that seems to be what I'm doing. All right, so here's what happens if you decide that you're gonna spray it. Okay, because we have an ink and a pearl and I spray this on, it's going to go over everything. It doesn't matter that this was black, because now we've introduced not only a dye, but a pigment. Remember, these mica stains, that mica is referred to as a pigment. That's a particle. Pigment dominates dye every time. That means dominate's going to sit on top of, and that pigment is always going to cover up the dye. So even though it's still going to give us contrast, don't be fooled by that. That's why I wanted to spray it. It's still a very cool look, because as you can see as this is drying, the white area is still going to be more of that true color of the mica stain, whereas the black area, you're only going to get the mica color of the mica stain. That's why I wanted to show you. It's cool because you're still getting a tone-on-tone look because you're dealing with black and white paper. That's cool. But if you wanted to just go in and add some color, your best bet would really be just to paint it on. You know, so we could take some of this. We don't have to spray it on. We can just take that little schnozzle and just put some of it on the sheet. You don't need a lot. Little goes a long way. You can take a water brush. I'm not going to do that, but you can. You could go in with a water brush. I don't want to do a water brush in that much dye, because then I would have to clean and clean and clean and clean to get that purple out of here. It wouldn't ruin your water brush. It's just, to me, a waste of cleaning. Instead, I just have a little jar off to the side with some water. Just going to pick up some of that. Now I can just a lot of that color in, and we could do the same thing. So you could go in and do your watercolor, but you see what I mean about how intense that is? So now I'm just going in with a wet brush. I didn't even pick up any more color. I'm just picking up more water, and I'm blending this out. Now if I want to add some color, it's pretty therapeutic this way if you like to do some coloring, because that archival is going to keep it safe. But I feel that painting it on like I'm doing, I'll show you, you just lose all of that, to me, just because it's all one solid color. Not to say that you can't, okay? That's why I like to show you options, where people are like, well, you give us options, I don't know what to do. You do what you want to do. You do the look that you like. You might say, well, I don't care, I like that it's more saturated than this soft blend. But that's really why I like the blend in water versus just painting it on, because I feel like I get more depth. But spraying it, still very cool, because look, that we're getting, even with that one color, you're still getting the bright dye of the mica stain, but then you're getting the mica in that black area. So creative options, that's what it's all about, is it not? That's what I absolutely love. Let's do a little jack-o'-lantern too, just to see. It's really, really good. Okay. Put a little orange there, because let's do, that's what I'm gonna do. Some unraveled. Oh, cool. Oh, thanks, Madeline. It's important to teach options. And not everyone's a fan of it, but that's all right. Not everybody has to be a fan of these types of videos. For me, a demo needs to be this kind of hope at the end of videos your brain is like creative chaos, because that just means you're thinking. You're thinking on your own. You're thinking of options. You're like, I could do this and this and this. That's really the purpose of learning something, is that it allows your imagination to process it your own way and create your outcome. So that was a little Phantom Mist. Now I'm going to go in with Unraveled, which is kind of this, it's this creamy color. It's, like I said, it's like antique linen. I just love that. And then I will take a little bit more of that Fortune Teller and just finish that off. Just because. All right. I'm going to mist this with a little bit of water, because I have no idea what I'm doing at this point, and I'm loving it. See? Get some of that to go. See, a little bit of water. Ooh, yeah. Okay. Fall backgrounds. And let's dry it. So because I added a lot of water to it, you can see that it really lightens up those colors. That's important to remember when you're dealing with mica stains. They are a colorant, a very concentrated colorant. And sometimes when you spray it, you're like, whoa, 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 that's too much. Great. While it's wet, blend it out. Because while it's wet, that's going to really, I mean, you can see how that purple just completely diffused because I did it while I was wet. If you dry it and then you try to go back and and wet it, it's going to be really hard because that color is already absorbed into the surface. This turned out real nice. Real nice. I like it. But I still left that blended because I wanted you to see that cool blended area. Isn't that fun? See, just a background. Just you got to like see the creative play in real time. The what if. The, oh, what if I just did that? What if I did that? Yeah. Doesn't mean you have to go back and change it. It's just a background that you could chop up. Could you do the black ink pad trick like we did here? Sure you could. Just fun options for working with mica stains. I do love them. I'm really happy. You know, we had the conversation when we were doing Distress Spritz, when we launched Distress Spritz in June. We had the conversation like, well, with the introduction of this, do we really need the seasonal mica stain? I go, well, I don't know the answer to that. As a maker, yes, because I think that the product is completely different, but maybe not everyone is going to agree with it. So, you know, I think that who knows how long they're gonna keep that product seasonal, but it goes a long way. A little goes a long way. So definitely check your stash this year and see if there's any colors that you're missing out on. Okay, I'm gonna take just a little oxide because I want to just add some splats to this. So I'm gonna keep my distance. I'm way back here, but just know that's what's going on the paper in a minute. When I spritz, sometimes I'll just squeeze the neck of this and it's gonna just create this crazy little like splattery effect. Sometimes it's pretty messy, but it's an easy way to splatter without a brush. Takes a little practice, but once you nail it, it's good because no flicking, no brush, just it's a quick splatter. Keep your distance, squeeze the neck of the bottle, and then you're just like slowly pushing it and it just creates the right amount of resistance. So I'm gonna dry that for a second. I just need to give it a mist of water so it can oxidize, but I don't want it to get too wet. All right, I'll show you what I did here. There we go. See that? Those little opaque dots? That's cracked pistachio in there. Just thought it needed it. Really great. All right. Beautiful. I mean, really, just that. Now you've got that shine. You've got those black lines. You've got that little bit of oxide. You just keep going and going. Okay. Let's clean up the run of this. Let's see, what else do I want to do? I'm going to get into shifters. I'm going to get into paste. Let's see, where are we on time? Oh, plenty of time. I'm still playing along. Okay, let me show you another option. This one's good. I often like to do this. Do this on some white. This would be great. Let's say you're going for just a cool, creepy, kind of freaky background. We'll do some warm colors for this. So I'm going to take some mica stain and I'm going to use the craft sheet part. This is the non-stick craft sheet, and I'm going to spray some colors of mica stain on there. That was a little mulled cider. This one is going to be some Harvest Moon. Just going to be a really bright yellow. It's new. It'll go. I just got it. No, I can't even believe this. Jeez, I've had the worst luck with these bottles today. I just haven't primed them because I asked Mario to. There we go. Let's do that one. Let's do a little, I'm going to add a little flickering to this because that was unraveled, and then I'm just going to do that. Okay. And no, I'm not done. Almost. Nope, nope, nope. There we go. A little decayed. Okay. You guys can see the colors here. Yeah, they're still on screen. I'm kind of running out of palette room. There's a little bit of decayed. I just wanted some, just say warm colors. You can do this with anything, okay? And I'm going to take a brayer. The brayer is really cool because the brayer allows me to actually pick up these colors. So if I do this on glass, okay, I'll just show you. Why not? I'll clean it up. If I spray the inks on glass instead of the craft sheet, they act differently. So when I put them here, do you see how instead of them being splotchy, they're really fluid? It's very challenging for this technique to get them off of glass this way, because when I go to roll it on the glass, it just pushes it along like a bulldozer. It doesn't allow the liquid to go around the brayer, even if you're really soft about it, because it glides across the glass. It doesn't give you what a craft sheet does. And that's why I love that there's a craft sheet with the Media Mat, because sometimes you can work on the glass for many things just on its own, and sometimes you just need that grippy sheet, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll through really gently. Now you see how those dots, it stays there and it keeps the little dots. And what it's doing is it's putting little dots and scribbly lines of spray on a brayer. And that's what allows me to just apply the color in a cool way. Like I said, this may not be your jam, but it is a cool background if you're die cutting things, especially if you're die cutting, you know, for fall, maybe you're gonna do leaves, you're gonna do a background. And I'm super light-handed. You know, I'm not even using my finger to press down. I'm just letting the brayer pick up those dots of color, and then I'm just gently rolling it across. I'm not even pushing down when I go onto the paper. The dismount's really, it's just really light. And I'm just adding layers over layers, and you keep going back into those sprays. But maybe you thought, oh, I never really thought to use a brayer with sprays. Well, it's cool, and I don't fill in the gaps. Could you? Yes. But I think there's something about embracing the space. But if you didn't like that much space, you could go in with a lighter color, another color, and you could just go and push down. And see, when you push down, you can blend over it. Or we can add water to this. We can blend over with a little bit of water, and that will also soften out those areas. See how it can transform? But really, you kind of do what you want to do. I'm going to take a little bit. Let's see if this one works. It's just fun. It's a fun way with the brayer. I prefer the white space, but you know, again, I like to show you options, the what ifs. All right, this one, this means business. This is Burning Ember. So this color is very much like crackling campfire meets like scorched timber. I mean, it's a really dark burnt orange, but I mean, on this background, it's just going to look cool. See, it's going to add, well, it's going to add like that ember look. So you could keep going with it. Let's let that one dry. We could dry it with a heat tool. Let's just take something as simple as a sheet of craft paper, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, all right, I'm not into all the muck and mix of 30 colors. Why don't you keep it simple? Okay, I can do that. Just take a brayer. We're going to go with one color. We're going to go over a piece of craft paper. Just going to add some of that. And that is our background. We could be done with that. Because again, stamping an image on this, which we will, perfect. A background, perfect. So we're going to start with just a little background. Cleaning this, again, I'm going to, you could just take that off, or I'm just going to actually just dip it right into the water. I have a little thing of water onto the side, and then I'm just going to take it out, clean it off with the towel, and it's clean, done. So I normally keep it on the handle when I'm dipping it in the water and then just take it off. But again, whatever is going to work for you. Easy way to clean it up. Okay, let's add just some fun splats to this. Take a splatter brush. Let's take a little bit of paint. You don't have to use paint. You can use whatever you want. But I'm just going to use some paint because I want to get some black dots on here. This is distress paint. The black distress paint comes out like ink. It's just, that's how it is. Wouldn't say it's the best for base coating things, but for splattering, I think it's pretty great consistency. I'm taking a splatter brush. I'm picking it up like as if I'm sweeping. I'm going to pull back on the middle, and I'm just going to let some of that kind of spring off the bristle. So I'm pulling this back and like letting it go, but I'm pointing it down to where I want the paint to be. Really light-handed, and several little flicks. We'll do the same on this background. I'll even go heavy in an area just so you can see. A little paint goes a long way. Okay, so I'm only working in this area. You can see where the paint is, and my fingers never touch that area. It always touches the top. You pull back and you let it go as it's pointing. And you may not think from maybe that angle that anything is happening, but it's the perfect amount of little speckly, fleckly splatter. You can splatter a lot of different ways. Maybe a toothbrush works for you, or maybe a fan brush, paintbrush. And I'm just going to clean it in the water. Wipe that off. I told you we're going to have some messy fun. Paint takes the longest to dry. So if you are going to splatter with paint, use a heat tool, because there's nothing more frustrating than you doing a splatter and because it looks the same wet or dry at this point, and you do a splatter and you think, oh, it's good, and then you touch it and then it's not good. So I'm just going to clean up while it's sitting there for a second. Again, a little water, spray, spray, spray. Oh, this is why. You see me fighting with my water ball? It's driving me crazy. I demo this a lot too. Okay, you have your spray bottle, right? And your spray bottle has a a tube, a straw. The tube always has like a bend to it. You want to you want to take your sprayer and you just grab it by this little, I'll just say like the little neck part, this little collar, not the tube, but the collar, and you want to point the tube in the direction of your sprayer. See that? Can you guys? There you go. You guys see that? So I've just twisted it to where this tube is coming out. I'll adjust a little bit more in the same direction of the sprayer. The reason I do that is because then when you put it on your bottle and you tighten the little collar, remember this has a little locking mechanism. So if your sprayer is not spraying, just unlock it by pushing the button. But now the tube is going in the direction. So see when I hold it, see how that air pocket goes there? If my tube was going the other way, that every time I go to spray the water, the tube is just sucking up air, which is what it was doing. And so that's why I couldn't clean. There we go. I share that a lot, but anytime somebody sees that, they're like, I need to go check my sprayer now. But it does. It happens a lot. Okay. There we go. Now I just clean that up. Okay, let's just dry these. We'll just do a quick stamping, and we're going to get into some pastes. Fun, fun, fun. Okay. Yeah, the locking thing is really important. If you go to use it and it's like clicking, you either broke it by now or it's still locked. Okay. So I'm just drying the paint just because I want to make sure those little splatters, and you don't have to splatter, you don't have to do any of this. But it's to me a great fun way to, I don't know, kind of create some different effects. Let's go in with some bubbling cauldron on this background. Now that this is dry, I'm going to add a little bit of green. So I'm going to add bubbling cauldron. I'm going to do the same thing, just again keeping my distance. I'm off camera, but I'm just grabbing the neck of this with these fingers and slowly pushing down to get the bottle to actually spit the color versus spray. Do you see that? That one little blast. I'm going to move it over here. Okay, that's all I need. I don't want to spray it because I don't want my background to become green. Could I have used a splatter brush? Yes, but this is just it's gonna give me a great effect. I'm gonna dry it, just so you can see another cool feature about working with things with mica in them. You could have done this with spritz as well. It wouldn't be as intense as this, but it would be somewhat similar. So the benefit of working with a product like mica stain that has colorant both in the dye and the pigment is that if your layers are dry, you can build things on top of each other. You couldn't typically do that with just dye ink because dye ink is translucent. But the fact that it has that little bit of mica in there, that's a pigment, now I was able to add those green splatters on the orange. Very pumpkin, right? So if I would have done this while it was wet, the green would have mixed with the orange and then everything would have been brown. But that's another great thing to remember is you have to dry layers to build layers. So don't be afraid of drying something and then adding something else. I think sometimes people like to just, I always say, again, a creative casserole. You like to throw everything at it and be like, okay, it's good. Well, not every casserole tastes good. Just because you throw everything in a pot, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So drying things, don't be afraid just because you dried it, add another wet thing and dry it, add another wet thing. This is Craft Heavy Stock. So again, it's very resilient to wet and dry. Not a ton, but pretty resilient. So I'm going to go in with the stamp. If you have open stamps, this is a cute one. This is Tiny Frights. This is a previous Halloween launch. But if you've got a bunch of open designs, that's often great for a background like this because I can take a stamp like, well, let's just say this little pumpkin, because that's very pumpkin. And maybe we do something like, well, what I would do, which is here for the candy. So I'm just going to take this and position it on my grid block using the line in the grid block. Let's see, can you see that? There you go. To line up my text, that helps me. And then I can bring the pumpkin down where I want, because that is, again, the benefit of stamps. You can take a block and you can stamp everything at the same time. You don't have to like stamp this and stamp that. And then make any adjustments that you might need when you see it. That looks good. Okay. Some people would stamp and then go back and stamp the sentiment. You can, but if you know what you're doing, at the same time, put it all down. And I don't mean know what you're doing like, are you experienced? I mean, if you know what you want to do. There you go. Let me rephrase that. If you know what you want to do, then do it at the same time. Okay, so I'm using archival, tap, tap, tap. Ink, you can use whatever ink you want. You can stamp, you can emboss, you can use a stamping tool, but then just go in and just add that. Stamp, Give it a good little pressure, no CPR, just some pressure. Hold it there for just a second. We're gonna let that dye soak in, and then we're gonna lift that off. And then there is our stamped background. Fun, simple, quick. If you always want your stamping to stand out more, highly recommend embossing, because as this dries, see how even the black, it becomes almost kind of like a hologram. It kind of goes in the back, because why? We already learned pigment dominates dye. So even though we stamped on top of it with a dye ink, as it dries, that pigment, whether that's the orange, the green, whatever, is going to, you can see like on the sea of candy, it's going to rise to the top. Now, it doesn't mean that it disappears. It's still there. It just means that it's going to be part of the background. So if you don't want that, then you can easily do embossing. Stamp in clear, put your black powder, and there you go. Nothing is going to overpower that, because embossing is plastic. And you would use the same thing on an oxide background or anything else. Just makes it fun. And you could even, we could add some other elements. My gosh, this is where my creative brain just has a blast, because if you know the products that you have and you remember how to use them, I think you'll just enjoy making more, because you're like, all right, so we've used mica stain, we've used ink. Okay, well, maybe we want to have some color now on that. Well, first I want to make sure our archival's dry. It dries pretty quick, but I am a chronic heat tool user, so I'm going to use it. But I can take any color pencils that I want, but by adding the pencils, and I'm going to do this kind of inside that area, not a lot. I don't want to cover up all that cool mica stain. Maybe I'll take a little bit of mustard seed as well. Just add some highlights. And you don't always have to watercolor these out. Of course, I'm going to, just because I want it blended a little bit more. Now we'll take a brush. Just going to blend that, because if I'm blending it, it's actually blending that pencil in, not only with itself, but also with that mica stain background. So it's just making this pumpkin a little bit more, I don't know, luminous. There we go. I like to use that word. I'm going to go back in again with a little bit more green, just so that stem is highlighted. And then maybe I want to take a white pencil and just kind of go around, just give it some little skippity bit highlights just around. Wherever you want. You do you. Do what you want. But that just adds a little vibe. But see how you can just take that little pencil, see that yellow? That was added from the pencil. But it still becomes part of the background, but maybe it makes your eye go to the image. So there's always creative options. Always creative options. But these are pigment. Distress watercolor pencils are water reactive pigments. And what have we learned today? That pigment dominates dye. So important, because that means if you're ever doing a background and you're like, oh, but I want to put something on and I want it to show up. Well, make sure whatever you're using is pigment. And maybe archival isn't the right stamping ink for you. Maybe you have a pigment-based permanent ink. Well, that's going to definitely show up better than this, right? Archival is still a great ink, but it's not the only ink out there. So it is just important to remember the basics, which is dyes are always translucent, pigment dominates dye. So if you ever want to put something on top of a background, anything that you have in your stash that is a pigment, it's fair play. Totally use it. There you go. Right. Yeah, I love these. They're so fun to work with. It is one of my favorite things to add in the world of distress. Okay. Well, gosh, we've done a slew of backgrounds. Let's talk a little bit about some pastes, shall we? Because I like to do some pastes. Actually, where is that? Didn't I do a greeny background? No, I didn't. But you know what? I'll use this one. I'll use that sludge cleanup for what I want to do next, because I can. Okay, I'm going to take this background. It's kind of sludgy. I'm going to take a folder, and we're going to make something kind of grungy and textural, okay? So this is going to be, you could have done any kind of background. This could even be regular cardstock, but I think it's going to be cool that it already has a texture to it. That's going to make it pretty fun. Maury, could you do me a favor and just hand me, it could be that little paper trimmer or scissor, it could be anything. Sure. That's fine, thank you. I'm just going to chop this off because, thank you. You're welcome. If I emboss a tag, I just want to get rid of that little nuggety bit. So I'm just going to get rid of that reinforcer. There we go. Thanks. Sure. See, it's not a tag anymore. It's just a background. So now we're going to take our background and put it in this folder. So I'm going to take archival ink, And I'm really just going to, I'm not going to push, so I'm not tap, tap, tap like a stamp. I want to rub this over the top because I only want to hit the high points. I want to hit the high points of that plastic. And this is 3D, so that dark area is part of the design, see? But I'm not squishing it in there. Then I'm going to take, I want to make sure that I've got ink in the area that I'm going to put this paper. There we go. I'm going to place this in. I like archival because it's oil-based and it stays wet a little longer. If you have Stays On and you try this with Stays On, I'll tell you right now, you're probably not going to be as thrilled with it just because, well, Stays On stays on. It dries really quick. I'm just going to use a fold away. You can use a fold away, a switch, a Big Shot, whatever you want. Just going to open this. Let's engage that. I just need my base platform, one embossing folder because we're dealing with 3D. Normally you could spray this with water, but you don't always have to. So I'm just going to get that started and I'm going to do one pass. Once it kind of pops through, I'm just going to go back the other way. There we go. I like to do a couple passes just to make sure that I get a nice impression. Move that out of the way. Set that off to the side now. Wings open. Didn't fold it away. All right. So here's what we have. So what we did is we took the black ink that we hit on this folder and it debossed the black into it. So it's kind of opposite of what we did on the leaves. Remember on the leaves, we rubbed the ink pad over the embossed paper. Here we put the ink pad on the folder and debossed the color. So we put that color as an innie. But now that background, all those crazy cool imperfections, magic. You would clean this off of your folder the same way you would clean it off of a stamp. And that would be cleaner, sanitizer, alcohol, like nothing special. So whatever ink you use on a folder, you would use whatever you'd use to clean that ink off of anything else. I use archival cleaner, but again, use whatever cleaners you're used to working with. The way I clean is probably not the way that Sizzix is going to recommend, but then again, this isn't a Sizzix ink. It's only a Sizzix folder. So I prefer to go in and take my cleaner, put that onto the folder, take one paper towel. Don't use 10. And don't start making a mattress out of Viva. Just take a cheap paper towel, fold it in half. What?
Mattress out of Viva?
Oh, well, you know, because everyone's like, oh, I could probably use 6 paper towels. That'll be better. No, because you don't want to overload your machine. But a folded paper towel it's going to flatten out, but you've got to kind of get it going. Can you, Mario, can you do me a favor? I just need you to just put your hand on the top because it's sliding on the mat. Thank you. All right. There we go. Thanks. All right. Perfect. And if you're having trouble with the paper towel folded in half, just do it open one time, right? And you could always run it a second. But here's why I like this way. It just makes it makes the cleanup a little easier. And hey, you have a cool paper towel as well. But it just takes that ink off way faster than scrubbity-dub-dub, okay? Way easier. Just running the paper towel through it. And you end up with a cool paper towel. Like, you could still ink this. Yeah. All right.
Scrubbity-dub-dub.
Well, there you go.
I'm not even gonna try to spell that.
So this is where we're at. Okay, what could we do to that? Well, we could look at it. We could see it. We could love it. But this is very reptilian. I love this folder. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some shine to it. We could add shine a lot of different ways. I'm going to use resist spray. I see a lot of people in the chats about machines. When it comes to a machine, use what machine you like. But I will tell you that the reason this industry has a bazillion machines is because they do all have different features. Whenever I'm embossing, I am very much the fold away because as Sizzix has told me, that's why I wanted to do it in my line, this has more pressure than any machine in the fleet. So do I die cut with this all the time? No, typically I'm either like a Sidekick or Switch or Vagabond. But when it comes to embossing folders, this is always my go-to. As you can see, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit to get that crank going, but the pressure that this does is, it's next level. It's really good. But you don't have to use it. You really use whatever machine. Okay, back to the shine. I'm going to use a splat box because we're going to use resist spray. And resist spray is just that. It's a sprayable resist. Think of it, if you're familiar with glossy accents, it's a sprayable glossy accents, okay? What's cool about the sprayable glossy accent-ness is that if you know what Glossy Accents does, it adds that shine. You normally squeeze it out, it stays dimensional. This is a fluid formulation of that. So when you spray it on, it is going to add a high shine to whatever you put it on. It also acts as a resist, okay? And I'll throw in a piece of paper just to, so we have the resist factor. Let me grab a stencil. All right, I'm gonna do, what do I wanna do? Oh, I like that, I like that. Oh gosh, it's gonna be hard to choose. I'm off camera looking through some stencils right now going, gosh, what do I wanna do? Maybe I'll just do these stars. That could be fun. Probably not the best choice. Ooh, I could use a little bit of grunge. Yeah, I'll do a little grunge. No, I'm not going to. I'll use that instead. Okay. Are we ready? Can you? It's kind of hard because the light, I know it's casting a shadow, but I have a paper towel in here. I'm going to use resist spray. Is it a sealer? Ish. Not really, because it's not waterproof. When it's done, like you couldn't like spray something and put it outside. So as far as a sealer, will it re-wet the inks? Yes. So, you know, when people think sealers, it's almost like, can I spray it on and it won't react what it's on? It's going to react what this is, but it's going to be good. I agree. Stampers Anonymous said so many stencils, so little time. So resist spray, I'm going to take it and I'm going to spray this on. Resist spray goes on kind of purpley. Okay, I'll show you when I pick it up. Kind of has, see that little like purpley vibe? That's just, it dries clear, but that's just so you know it's going on. And I just spray a few mists just to make sure that it's covered. I'm gonna do a little bit more there. Quick sprays, but wherever this stuff goes, it becomes glossy and sticky. So that's why I use a splat box, because if it's on your glass mat, you'll have to scrape this off with a razor blade. It'll still come off, but you have to scrape it off. I'm gonna let that air dry, and I'll do a resist on this background. Let's do something a little smaller, just so I have it covered. Okay, I'll take a little background. We're going to use this flourish. That'll be nice. It's going to cover the whole thing. And there again, I'm just going to spray. So there we go. Spray, 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 spray. I just did some quick sprays with it. I'm going to lift this up. It's all about the dismount. You can see that's what it is on the stencil. I saw a question, is it shiny after it dries? It's just like Glossy Accent. So it will be glossy and shiny when it dries. It's just sprayable. So right now you can see it on there? It's going to dry just like this, just this shiny, but it won't have that like, the camera's not picking up, but it has almost like this ultraviolet-y kind of look to it when you spray it. And that's just so you can see it going on the surface. So you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. Now, the most important thing to remember about resist spray, and it's not my favorite thing to do, so I'm sure it's not many of your favorite things to do. Yeah, it does have a weird smell, but I try not to breathe it in, but it does. It has a weird little stink to it. When you're done with it, you're going to want to remove the nozzle, okay? So I take this off. I often have another piece of paper that I want to just use it on, okay? Because there's still liquid in the tube, in the chamber. So if you don't want to waste it and maybe you just want to get a splatter, you can splatter it onto a piece of paper, okay? But then I take this into the sink and I'm just going to, this is going to be like a portable sink. I'm going to bring in my lasagna pan. There we go. Okay, imagine this was a sink. And if you don't want to use a sink, please don't tell me about plumbing, all that. Just use whatever you use a bucket, use whatever you want to run water through. But you're going to take this sprayer and you're going to put this in water. So typically I do this in the sink with the water running because it's still a water-based medium. So as long as it stays liquid, it's not going to clog anything up. But I'm going to put my hand here. And while the sink is running and this is kind of in the drain in the water, I just start spraying it and I get all of that. See how that resist is cloudy? I just spray this until it becomes clear. So I just kind of look at my hand. It doesn't take long. There you go. Now it's completely clear. That means this is all cleaned out. I wipe this off with water and then I take the sprayer. I give it one more spray to kind of get the water out of the chamber. Okay, so there's no water in there. Then I put it in. And while there's water in here, so there's still a couple of drips of water, I put the cap on and that keeps moisture in there. And since I've done it that way, I have never, ever had to replace the sprayer of a resist spray. But before, when it first came out and I was just wiping it off with a baby wipe or just, you know, every time I would go to use it, you know, because it'd be weeks or months and it'd be like, pfft. And once that clogs in a sprayer, forget it. You got to replace it. But like I said, I know it's not fun to do, but it's worth doing. And so typically when I'm bringing out resist spray, I have a lot of things that I want to use it for, and you don't have to do it right away, but you need to do it in a while. Okay. I think that's just really important. You want to do it when you're kind of done working with it. All right. So, no, it's not a plastic component and it's not rubberized. It's just a water-based adhesive in there. All right, let's dry these. You can let them air dry, or we can use a heat tool. If you use a heat tool on resist spray right away, it becomes kind of crackling. But if you let it just dry for a little bit, it's really good. Yeah, fingers for resist spray, that works. I don't know how you do it through a stencil, but it could definitely work. But you can spread it on that way. So I'm just going to dry. Do you have to use a heat tool? No. It will air dry fairly quick, probably about 5 minutes or so. Okay. So that is what resist spray did to this background. It's completely dry, but I love that shine that it gives it. It just gives it such a, I mean, this really kind of looks like a cool hide, but it works on many different backgrounds. I mean, this could be for stars and snowflakes and all sorts of beautiful things. But I love that resist spray, although it's designed as a resist, which we're going to use it. We're going to see how it works as a resist, but it does make a great top coat for things that can go into a journal or a card because it's not sticky. It's not any of that. And it has such a great shine to it. And unlike a collage medium or a Mod Podge or anything, you're not brushing it on where it's really thick, because if you were brushing on a water-based medium over all of these inks, you would re-wet them, right? Pretty cool. I love the effect. So this is what resist spray really does. It puts a resist on there. So now you can take, well, you could take any ink medium you want. I'll do something as basic as an ink pad, and then we'll go into the micas. But there again, I can take an ink pad, maybe do a little villainous. Just get some ink on there, just so you can see in the corner. So when you go and blend it on, there's your resist, just like that. So it will resist whatever you apply it to. And that is actually resisting the ink, meaning even though we blended, and I chose villainous because it's super dark color, just so you can truly understand what I'm about to show you, that even though you applied it and you can see that where there is no resist spray, the ink started staining the cardstock. But this part right here, if you take just a damp cloth, it could be fabric or paper towel, and you wipe over the resisted area, it will go back completely white. So the ink, even though you're blending it, it's sitting on top of this resist, but it's not dry. So whenever you apply it over resist, you always have to go back, and this is where you would actually buff this off. You would take that excess ink off with a cloth or a towel. But we're going to use mica stains on this background. And let's just do a lot of grays and browns and Tim colors. Why not? All right, get all these shaken up. I know, it's so much purple. I said that to Mario. I'm like, you know, I'll be in my happy place, but definitely because I'm sticking to Halloween colors. Hey, want to play by the rules. It's the same way like when we do a Christmas demo, it'll be a lot of reds and greens and some blues, but that's what it is.
Really, they're loving the purple.
It's fun.
There's a lot of purple.
Well, because you don't see a lot. I mean, I like purple. Like for this time of year, it's definitely my jam. It's just not something that I gravitate towards every day, but that's all right. All right. So let's just add some, we'll add some spray because I want to talk about working, especially on a spray like this, working with some different kind of sprays as well as your typical backgrounds, okay? Because we'll have a little bit of purple in there. So when it comes to working with sprays on resist, this is what you're going to kind of end up with, which is a lot of pooling, because wherever that resist is, that spray that you put on is going to want to pool up and sit on the top of it, okay? So the reason that's important to remember is if you're not blending and maybe you're using resist spray for a spray and you're drying it, because I want to point that out, or even if you're letting it dry, the immediate effect is incredibly disappointing, but I want to show you how we can kind of bring that back. I mean, I love the fact that, you know, in today's world with social media, there's a lot of great communication, a lot of people helping each other out, but there's also a lot of misinformation. And so often when you see resist and you see this, it's like, oh, mine didn't work. And they're like, oh yeah, mine doesn't work either. But rarely do they kind of tell you like why it didn't work. And it goes back to what I talked about when you were blending it, that the resist spray is protecting the background, but it's certainly not doing, it's not doing all the work. It's just resisting. You still have to remove it, very much like lift ink. So here I'm just going to take a towel first just to kind of blot off the excess. And you can see already that a lot of that image is starting to show up, but that ink still remains. So in order to bring, you might like this. You might look at this and go, hey, you know what, we're done with this. But I'm just going to dry this because I want to make sure this is dry before I do the wipe, because I don't want to smudge and smear all the colors. But I think I'm going to go in with a little paper towel. You could do a paper towel or a cloth, but this is going to be easier to kind of see what I'm picking up. So I just sprayed a little bit on that paper towel, and now I'm just going to just clean this off. So this is where you really see that it did in fact resist. All of that mica, that spray sits on top, and it didn't matter if it was mica stain or spray stain or oxide. If you have a spray, it's going to sit on top of that resist. You could dry it on top and it could stay there, but this is really, if you are expecting that true resist, which this particular stencil had a lot of open space, and a lot of open space is what was resisted, that's ultimately what you're going to get. And remember, we resisted on a piece of white paper. So that's why this area is white. If you didn't want it white, we could have started with a purple background, laid the same stencil down, resist sprayed, and then went over it with black, and all this area would be purple. So it's whatever you want to resist. The resist is completely translucent. Just depends on what you put it over the top of, or if you use it as a top coat. All right. Now we're going to talk about some paste, some textures. Good time. Resist would work well on, I saw a question, does it work well on black cardstock? You could use it really on any cardstock to resist, or as a sealant. Yeah, for sure. It's a cool product. It's an easy resist. It is a little messy at times, but I think it's totally worth it. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the pastes. So we're going to talk about the Halloween ones, which is Grit Paste Crypt and Grit Paste Glow. So this one, Grit Paste Glow, is very cool. You can find a lot of inspiration since last year when it came out. It's a little bit more fluid than the rest of them. It does glow in the dark. It needs to be charged by light. So it's not like a glow stick where you snap, and it's certainly not, you know, an everlasting gobstopper. It's something that you need to charge with light, and then it will glow for, you know, several minutes, and then when it's in the light again, it will glow. So that's the cool thing about this, that you can use it on cards for many things. I mean, I've done silly stencils for it. I've done stencils that have, like, you know, creepy eyes that you can do that glow in the dark, or stars that glow in the dark. So think about that when using the Grit Paste Glow. It does dry with this kind of lime kind of color, I guess. It's almost like a highlighter. That's the color it definitely dries. You could tint it. You could color it with re-inkers. I'm going to talk about tinting our paste, but it doesn't change the glow color. So know that it's always going to glow that kind of greenish color for the most part. But it's really cool, especially if you know, if you don't expect it. If you have it in your craft room and you have your lights on and you shut it off, it is kind of like a beacon sometimes. But I love that it comes out for Halloween, but I also love that people use it year-round for different things that you want to glow. That's it. And then we have another favorite. This is Grit Paste Crypt. And Grit Paste is a gritty paste. It's a paste that when it dries, it has a grit to it. It is like translucent based, so it doesn't have any white to it, so it does dry and it reveals what's underneath. But this particular one has a tint to it, so it's kind of tinted. Think of it like old paper distressed. It's kind of that greeny, light browny color. But this also has little flecks of black. You don't really see it till it dries, but I'm going to show it to you already dry. It's one of my favorite pastes because you can do so much with this one year-round, but it is only a Halloween paste. So some of my favorite things about this particular paste, this is how it dries, by the way, Grit Paste Crypt. So it kind of looks gray, but see what I mean when I said it was that greenish old papery? So good. This is just applied with a palette knife, and that's how it dries. It's going to dry with that great gritty texture, but those are those little black flecks. That's the Crypt. So not all grit paste have it. The color and the flecks are specific to Crypt, the Halloween version, because we do have grit paste in the regular line, and we have an opaque one, and we have a translucent one in the line. This one is translucent base, but it is tinted with black flecks. I was waiting for that comment, Zoe Hillman. She's like, it's everything, Crypt paste. And I agree. It is one of my favorites because of what I'm about to show you. Like, you can do so much with it. If you have any kind of re-inkers, they don't have to be distress. They could be any kind of re-inkers that you would have for your stamp pad. So they could be oxide, and they could be the regular translucent re-inkers. The tintability of paste is where I think goes beyond the season, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this demo. So grit paste Crypt, we've seen that it looks really cool. But what if we wanted to use it, I don't know, for the beach? We wanted to create that perfect sandy color for the beach. Well, I made this little swatch, and I talked about like what I wanted to use. Could you use paint instead of ink? If you use paint, you can, but then your paste will always be opaque, meaning you will not see through it. So could you tint it with paint? Yes, but then even the black flecks will also be covered up. That's why I don't use paint. So that's specifically why I stick to inks. So for this one, I used oxide and I used antique linen. Okay, because that's the color that I wanted it to be. It always starts with this, so I have to deal with that. So if you wanted lighter sand, maybe you wanted really bright sand, you would just need to use more of the ink. But tinting the paste is really easy, okay? You're just going to take a palette knife, you're going to scoop some of it up. You could work on the craft mat part of it if you want. You could use a piece of wax paper, use whatever you want. All right, then we're going to take our re-inker. I'm going to shake it up, because oxides you have to mix because it is a fusion of dye and pigment. Distress re-inkers are just dye. And we're going to add some color to it. Okay, how much? I don't know. Start with a few drips. You can always add more. If you get it too wet, then you just have to add more paste. So I normally start with maybe 3 drops or so, and I'm just going to start mixing it. Now, it is going to change the viscosity. You can see it's kind of like, I don't know, it gets a little chewing gum, but as the air hits it, it will start to firm up again. So when I mix it, you don't want to go past this. If it becomes too slimy, then just add more grit paste. But we're just going to mix this up. Now remember, it looks darker than how it dries. Very, very much how like the jar itself looks like that really, dark gray, but it dries to that translucent look. So keep that in mind when you're mixing it. And often you can go, oh yeah, it did change. Like, look at that, it was gray, and now I very much see antique linen. Okay, so you can kind of mix that up, and this would be our color of beach sand paste. Now, the thinner this is, so if I go on really, really thin, and you don't have to use a palette knife, you could use, like if you want something spread really thin, change your palette knife. Get a palette knife that isn't a mixing palette knife. Get like a spreading palette knife. These are distress palette knives, but any kind of scraper, and see the thinner it is, you can see more of that color come through. So kind of what you see is what you get. But this is great that you can spread it onto a card. You could use your finger, but this is going to be a great option for sand. Okay. That being said, there's so many other things that it could be. Okay. We can also make something mossy. Now this is distress ink and grit paste Crypt, and this is oxide of the same color, peeled paint, because remember, this is just dye, so it's going to give us kind of a dark mossy look. Oxide's going to give us much more of a brighter look because we're getting dye and pigment, so it becomes a little bit more luminous. This great for a little garden scenes, cards, leaves. I mean, so many things popped into my brain as soon as I said garden. This is one of my favorites. This is cracked pistachio. I love cracked pistachio in both. I like to mix both ink and oxide, and you could add a drop of each. You could do ink and oxide in the same mix. It doesn't matter. You can mix those into the same grip, but I love how this creates such a beautiful mossy look. Great for Halloween, for tombstones. You want to add a little crypt on that. You wanted to add stuff just around branches that you may get outside. Super good. Could you mix glow with, you could mix it, Tina, but it won't glow because the color will completely dominate the glow. It won't glow as bright as it is. So, but yeah, you could certainly mix it. It just won't glow as much as you probably would hope it would. So I would just tint it. And you could tint it again with the same reinkers. Like I said, you can tint the glow with any of these reinkers. It just won't change. Like if you tinted it blue, it won't glow blue. it'll glow kind of green through blue, if you will. Here's Fired Brick. Great for Christmas time if you want to put this on, and then because this stays pliable, you can spread this on a piece of cardstock and then emboss it with a 3D folder and actually get textured bricks, because this is embossable. It stays pliable. There's oxide. I do like the oxide. Again, I like both. Just fun. And then of course rust, everyone's favorite. If you're adding rusty, crusty things to ideology gears, I prefer ink over oxide, although both of them are good because rust has, you know, the highs and lows. Very cool. But that's just fun. So these are just ideas of like, well, why would I need this? Like, I'm not going to make a cemetery. Okay, forget. You don't even do Halloween. But do you do things that pertain to a beach where you want some texture, or garden things, or moss, or brick, or rust? Still maybe no. But if you do, that's why that's one of those things that you really love the idea of tinting it. It's because of those little black flecks. That's what makes it more interesting. Can you tint the other grit paste? You can tint translucent grit paste, but you can't tint opaque. The opaque is gesso based, so it doesn't take color well. That one you would need to use paint. So, but not to confuse the issue. That's Grit Paste Crypt. Cool, right? So much fun. Okay, just gonna take this, let me just scrape this off. I'm gonna clean that off. I could apply that through a stencil. There's so many things that I can do with adding color to that. In fact, let me take this. Let's talk about another one now that we're into the tinting part. I love seeing all of the ideas pop up in the chat where people just have ideas about, like, oh, I'm going to use that for rust. I'm going to do that. So again, we're talking re-inkers and that. Again, you could spread that through a stencil. Maybe you wanted some, you know, colored grunge or grime. That's a great option for that. But another paste that, this one's really not Halloween, but it was launched at Christmas last year. And so I couldn't really talk about it at Halloween, which was painful because I love it. And that is called Texture Paste Sparkle. Now, Texture Paste Sparkle was launched last Christmas. And again, it did so well that it is also part of the everyday line. So if you're not familiar with what this is, it is a translucent paste, totally see-through, that has little, I mean, the most microscopic flecks of glitter that you probably can't even see at this point. But here's what it does. It's just one, you can tell I use a lot of it. It's one of my favorites because I'm not a huge sparkly person, but I love the vintageness of it. This is what this paste does when you apply it. It goes on super shiny, stays dimensional, but it's almost like that 50s diner for mica. So the glitter it's like this platinum blend, so it's a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver, but it's not glitter paste. So a lot of it is very see-through. So when you put it on, you just spread it on and you're done. Don't go back and forth, because as you do, you're just getting more and more glitter and you're building up the glitter. But we can see through what we do, and I'll demo that in a second. But tinting this, oh, come on. Now you have a bazillion colors of this shiny, sparkly paste. Whatever, I mean, really, whatever color you want from a glittery paste, it's all just starts with sparkle. And the sparkle is so, I don't know, it's just so great. It's subtle. Even looking at colors, you know, like when you talk about orange, like for Halloween, we can do either carved pumpkin or maybe you want rusty hinge, but look at that for Halloween. Or you can take any of your yellows, like you could take some fossilized amber, again, re-inker and like spread that over a moon or in stars. Maybe we want some cool green slime. So crushed olive or twisted citron. But see, that's what I'm saying. It's perfect for Halloween, Christmas, year round. You could do red sparkly hearts. This you could put on trees at Christmas. This is little bundled sage, because you could even just brush this onto bottle brush trees. But then we get into, like, we'll skip, I mean, there's so many beautiful blues, and I just couldn't stop mixing colors. And then I did have to stop. But there, that's a little shade of lilac. Seedless preserves. I mean, look at that. Wilted violet. You could even have cream, browns, but really one of my favorites, black. Shocking. But look at that. Black soot, distressed re-inker, sparkle paste, and you have the most beautiful sparkly obsidian because it stays shiny. Isn't that cool? Woo, so good. And like literally no glitter on there. That to me is the best. Can you use it on clothing? You cannot. You could use it on clothing for a costume, but you couldn't wash it. If you washed it, it's still a water-based medium and it would come out. But yeah, if you're making just a costume that you don't plan to wash, yeah, go for it. Okay, so tinting it, well, very much the same. And since I saw an endless slew of purple hearts, we will do some purple, but I'm still going to do some green just because. So here's what I'm going to, it's the same thing. You can mix it on whatever you're comfortable mixing it on, but it looks like white yogurt, so don't be freaked out by that. Another thing I want to talk about as I'm doing this is maybe you don't have reinkers. Okay, let's do one over here, because maybe you don't have reinkers. If you don't have reinkers and you don't have a use for reinkers, don't go buy reinkers. Okay, there are other things that we can do. One thing though that I want to warn you about is do not think that a spray is a good option to tint your paste. You can try it, it just won't work. It's going to always remain sticky and tacky and all of that. So don't think, oh, but I've got sprays and I'll do it. Nope, sprays are off limits. But if you don't have a reinker, you can use your ink pads just the same. You're just going to need more of it, okay? So let's do this one with a reinker because I see there's more paste and there's less paste here, so let's do this one with an ink pad. So I'm going to take a little bit of carved pumpkin and I'm not going to put it in the paste, I'm just going to put it around and I'm pushing down, almost like squeezing that ink out of the ink pad. So there's a little carved pumpkin, but I'm also going to put in a little bit of crackling campfire just to add that, and maybe just a touch of mustard seed. So I can actually kind of create a blend this way with my ink pads. You would do the same thing with an oxide pad, same way. This one, as I mentioned, I'm going to use reinker. So for reinker, especially if you're using Distress, my advice is a drop. See that little drop? So not a dropper, not a dropper full, one drip from the dropper of Distress. This is so concentrated that if I could have done a half a drop, I would have preferred that, okay? Or a quarter drop, I would have preferred that. Yeah, I think just the timing. Someone asked if we can do oxide the same way. I've already answered. So yep, you can. Okay, so here we're going to take this and I'm going to start just going into the ink, and right away you can see that ink is reactive. So it's just a great way to tint this without reinkers, just taking your ink pads. Just keep in mind that oxide is going to be chalky. So the reason I don't use oxide, and I see a million other things where it's like, what about Kool-Aid? What about alcohol ink? What about, you need to stick with water-based colorants. So a solvent like alcohol ink would react with this and it would actually start to bubble and separate. So anything water-based, like could you use food coloring? Yes. Anything that's water-based, because this is a water-based paste, you could use as a colorant, all right? Now you can see here that the color goes on really great. If this was an oxide reinker, instead of my color being translucent like these are, it would still be sparkly, but it would be more hazy, chalky. It's okay. I'm not saying it's just okay. I just prefer translucent colors, so I always show you what I prefer. You know, obviously I'm giving you options. You have reinker and ink pad. So if there were more, I would share more, but typically these are going to give you the best results. I always find that, you know, I don't want to say you can use these 10 other things that really aren't going to achieve great results, because then you're going to end up wasting, well, your time and the paste. So here I'm just going to scrape off just like a really thin layer, just so you can see. And I'll keep it heavy there. So this is going to dry completely clear. Where you see that buildup of color, that's exactly how it's going to dry, which is cool. Meaning if you have some translucent colors, it's going to show up very, very vividly. And if you have it opaque, it's going to be really saturated. So if we were going to take this and maybe go through, oh, let's see, what sort of little stencil do I have? Probably not many. Oh yeah, I can do some little stars. But let's say you wanted some little Halloween stars on, I don't know, some little part of the background, right? Remember this background that we were going to cut up that we did? We can take that and we can go right through those little stars in that area. So I'm just spreading and lifting, pick this up, and we're going to let that dry. And those are going to be translucent, sparkly, but tinted orange stars. This I just put right in the water, and that's what's going to clean that off. So good. Okay, clean this, same thing. I've got my water sludge, a little towel. And now we've got this one. This one's going to, like, you'll see, it's pretty intense. Reinker is incredibly concentrated, but that's what's really nice about using it to mix that and ink pads to mix with your paste, because a little color goes a long way. The more liquid you introduce to a paste, you're really doing something that it wasn't necessarily designed to do. It wasn't designed to be tinted, but water-based is water-based, so I was like, heck, why not? See how it works. And it works absolutely perfect. So I do love that. Let me just wipe that off. So get a piece of paper. Now, because this is a die, I prefer like a white cardstock like this, because there again, that's going to give me the best effect. I'm going to do the same thing, heavy there, thin there. And then we'll take this and, well, let's go through another stencil. We'll take this. This is just some cool writing. Maybe we'll do that on this background. So we'll take some of that writing. I'll pick up this sparkle, and you just kind of, I'm kind of haphazard when it comes to spreading this on. I don't feel the need to go through every part of the stencil. See, I kind of like hit and miss, but I press it down and I skim it off because I don't want too much of that on there. Look how cool that's going to be. That's going to dry translucent and sparkly on that background. Just cool writing. I think that's great. Same thing, going to throw that in there, and we're going to let this dry. The drying time of this paste, it probably takes, I'm going to say like a good 30 minutes. Could you speed it up? If you speed it up, the sparkle paste does have a tendency to blister with heat, kind of get bubbly, but hey, maybe you want, bubbly cauldrons or bubbly stars. Because it is translucent base, you do want to clean it up with water while it's wet. It makes it so much easier. If you let it dry, you can still take it off. You just have to scrape it off. So even on this non-stick sheet, a little bit of water because it started to dry around the edge, and you just scrape it off. It's totally fine. But always remember, if you have something water-based, like even ink, it's just easier to clean while it's wet. So sparkle, glow, crypt, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with different pastes that maybe you didn't think to do. And this stuff, I mean, you can see as it's drying, the little sparkles are already starting to show up. It's great. I'll try to heat one just to see. I don't know if it's going to turn out good, but hey, I don't mind. Just use a little heat tool, just at least on the thin area, so you can see how well that turns out. It's fun. It's just great fun when it comes to creating and working, that you can just play. So as this is drying, I just want to show you. See that, like, you don't really see much of the glitter, but you see a little bit of the sparkle. It's very similar to mica. You don't notice the sparkle until it dries. Then everything starts coming to life. But again, just for clarification, my advice on paste, let it air dry. You can put it in front of a fan with cool air, but I never like to use heat on any kind of paste. It just, to me, it changes the whole texture of it. So, but again, that's just personal preference. Okay, there we go. So that's already starting to dry. You can see, see how that's changed? See the difference? Oh, I love that sparkle. And of course, this is on white paper, and I did this specifically on white because I wanted you to see that how you apply this, it will change the tonality of your thing. On white, well, I don't think that's its best feature, but now when we apply it to real time, like for example on this background, I already know that this purple script is not going to dry all the same shade of purple. It's going to have dark and light, and because it's translucent, it's going to pick up some of the background, but it's all going to dry with that really subtle sparkle. It's just going to be cool. It's going to look really good. So anyway, that's a lot of info, a lot of details, and I think that to me is probably one of the most important things. All right, I've got one other thing to talk about, and then we'll wrap it up, because I could go on for days when it comes to demoing. That's what I love to do. Okay, another cool thing for the holiday season, whether you're into Halloween or Christmas, is a stencil that doesn't get a lot of airtime because, well, they're hard to talk about, but they're easy to do once you get it. And once you get it, it's very cool. It is a concept I developed with Stampers Anonymous called shifters, and we did these long ago. They're all still available. Stampers Anonymous doesn't retire their things, but shifter stencils, they come in both regular size and mini size. It is a repeat pattern designed to be shifted. Not like, oh, I'm going to take it and shift it, because you can do that with a lot of stencils. You might have, snowflakes or polka dots or stripes, and you do it and then you move it and you ink it again. Absolutely you can do, but these have that specific application designed in it. And here's what I mean. When you take a stencil, this one happens to be trees. Let's do something that's more relevant to the season. Maybe we'll do polka dots. Okay, let's do polka dots. Okay, when you get a shifter stencil, it is going to have a die cut element, or a laser cut element, I should say, cut through the stencil, and then another pattern that is laser engraved. There will be a very fine line in that stencil. It's not designed to be poked out. It's engraved in there so it doesn't go away, but it's not visible. And I've talked about this. You can look at, go to the blog and just maybe type in shifters and you might find other videos about it. But the great thing about these is that once you prep one, and I don't even know if I have a new one to prep, otherwise I could prep it on camera. I don't think I do, because it's the first thing I do when I get them is prep them. But what I do is, in order to see these lines like you see them, and even I do the same thing on my engraved numbers, is I take black paint and I go over that number and I wipe it off. That allows the paint to sit into that little engraved design. And because I use paint, it is permanent. So those lines, it doesn't matter how often these get cleaned or go in water. I only have to do it once, and then they will forever be marked. And the reason I mark them is because of, well, how I'm going to use them. Okay, just to show you. The great thing about shifters is that it allows you to take a pattern and actually stencil in multiple colors without any masking, because the stencil does the masking for you, okay? So you can shift it in colors, and because it's a shifter, you can take a design and make it relevant to any season. Obviously, I'm showing you Halloween colors, right, with orange and black, but the stripes could be orange and black, or the stripes could be red and green, or they could be minty, they could be pink. I mean, they could be red, white, and blue. They could be anything you want with any pattern that you see as a shifter. And I'll show you how a shifter works. Like, I love that Harlequin. And there's a lot of different designs. There's like off-register dots. There's like, this was something that I think Tammy B shared when these first came out, which is like a 4-time shifter. So each color was shifted different. I mean, they're just, like, I love that minty one. So much fun. And they're really easy to do. Okay, but at shelf level, and I get that, you might buy a stencil not even knowing what it's supposed to do, and you're like, well, this is just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I don't even get it, okay? Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because there are basic designs. There are Harlequin, which you've already seen. There's even shifter snowflakes. There's shifter like mermaid scales. That's really cool. Any of these shifters, there's plus signs. This is a garland, chevron. There's not all of them. I mean, I don't design a lot because you need to, in my opinion, you need to have the right design that is shifter worthy. Okay, even like shifter rays, they're cool to do. All right.
Grab you
So
a new one?
no, that's all right. I mean, I hope I explained it. Unless I didn't, then you can. Just depends on the chat. But I mean, I think I explained it. So here's what we're going to do. Let's do the dots and let's just do the stripes, just so you can see how a shifter works. So again, mine have already been, I just take a blending tool, dab black paint, and wipe it off while it's wet. Done. Then it stays on. Okay. So I'll start with, you can use whatever kind of tape that you want, because shifting, we do want to line things up. So I'm going to take just a piece of media grip. There we go. All right. I see people asking about the scales. All right. I'll do that one too. So maybe I'll do stripes and scales. Maybe I'll do stripes and, I don't know what I'll do. Okay. Let's just take, could be any kind of paper you want to work with. Doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to place this down. Let me move this grip down a little bit. There we go, just so I can be in camera. So this is going to help grip the card. Actually, I'm being picky now, Mario. Look at me, being picky.
Never are.
Well, just because if I'm going to demo it, I want to demo it right. If I'm going to use a shifter, I prefer that my grip is cut to my paper. That's just me. So I've got like a piece of grip that's already cut pretty much a little smaller than an A2 if I was going to do a shifter on a tag. That's just me. But if you have just grip, you can use the whole piece. But it's just easier. Here's why. Because I'm going to place my grip down. I'm going to put my paper on the grip. That's going to secure that. And then I'm going to place the shifter stencil. Now, I'm always going to cut my background, so I never pre-trim my paper ahead of time. Also, if you have a magnetic mat, you can use magnets if you want. Just make sure that this thing isn't going to move, okay? So just want to take that, place it down. Got a piece of masking tape up there. And then we're going to do some ink blending. Now for ink blending for for anything, you can go in and use tiny tools, you can do brushes, you can do whatever is your tool of choice for inking, okay? So let's do this. We're going to do a little bit of green. So what we have, just so you guys can see, is we have a little visual of some open space, and that's what we're going to use first as our first color. So I'll take some greens. I'm going to open both of these up. I've got, well, in this case, it looks like I've got twisted citron and some crushed olive. So those are going to be, and I have a green tiny blending tool. It's going to allow me just to, the reason I use a tiny blending tool is just allows me to go in to the details a little closer. So I'm just going to ink that, just dab and twist. Again, whatever ink tool you like. If you like brushes, go for it. I just really prefer tiny blending tools for this kind of purpose. It just makes inking through stencils or die cuts so easy because they're just easy. And they get into those little areas. Okay, beautiful. And I'm not contaminating my inks by double dipping. The whole purpose of a blending tool really is to blend color. Even if I was going from green into yellow, it would never contaminate your ink pad. It may stain it to where you don't like it, but it won't change the color. There's not enough ink transferring from the foam, but it does allow me, like, for example, when I'm using this, I'm getting different levels of that color. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing. You'll get the idea. I'm going to shift another color, but like, I'm not going to go all the way down. So this is what we have so far, okay? You guys see that? That's our first level. It doesn't really matter also if we moved our paper or not. That's completely insignificant. So let's say we wanted another scale of, like, I don't know, purple. We're doing purple and green, okay? What we're going to do, and I'll hold it close and then I'll do it on the work surface. The first thing I need to do is clean my stencil. You see that green on there? I don't want that there, okay? Now, typically when I'm working like this and my stencil, I'm gonna line it back up. My stencil's in place. This is where I would take my cloth, because I have green and I would just make sure that my cloth is somewhat clean. I would just take this and I would wipe the ink off this way, because any ink that comes off the stencil would go into those open areas. And that's just see all that green on there? That's a quick way to get the excess ink off and use it to kind of fill in the blanks. But I still have ink residue on here, so I don't want to dip my stencil. I don't need to do any of that stuff. Just take a paper towel, mist it with a little water just on the paper towel, and use that. I've got tins going everywhere. Use that on your stencil. Am I still in frame? There we go. And I just dab it with a damp paper towel, and that's going to take off the ink, and then I can just wipe it. So I don't need to get my, see, there's not much left now because I wiped most of it onto the background. The reason you want a clean stencil is because when we shift it, we're going to change colors. Now, if your colors are orange and orange or orange and red, that's okay. But because I'm going purple and green, we know that purple and green make brown. So if I didn't get rid of this green and I went in with purple, my layer would go down brown. I hope that makes sense. So here is how we shift, okay? This is what we've stenciled. You can see that where it's cut through is where the green was. Shifting just means that you take your stencil and some shift up and down, some shift right to left, some actually shift flipping it around. But all you do is you take your stencil and you position it to where the design outlines what you've inked. So in this case, I had to go up and over. So now that black outline outlines the green. Do you guys see that? Does that make sense? And you want to do that, like, you straighten your stencil. So like, see if I shifted where I'm misaligned there, but I'm there. You need to line everything up. And then once it's positioned, you're ready to go for the next layer. So now let's do that right on the table. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to go up there, make sure I'm kind of down there, kind of in the middle, because we're still going to create a little bit of a gap. So this doesn't necessarily shift right to the edge like some do. Okay, I think I'm good. My head would be like this close to the table usually. Okay, I think I'm shifted good enough-ish. It's fine with me. Okay, take my inks. I haven't done shifters in so long, and I love them. I just think they're so fun, because when I shift backgrounds, my gosh, there's a candy one. I love the candy one. It's probably one of my favorites. No surprise there. Oh no, I don't want brown. We're going to do purple. Here, let's move brown out of there. I just like to use the tin just to actually hold the mini ink pads. It just makes it easy. So the lids are right there. And all right, so here we go. So we're going to place this down, And we're going to do the same thing. And so now what happens is our area is essentially protected where the green is, and we're applying our next color. Could you do this with sprays? You would have to be really light-handed to do this successfully with sprays. Not to say that you couldn't, but my advice is probably stick with an ink pad. And this could be oxide. This could be really any ink pad you have. And like I said, any kind of inking tool that you would want to use. But you'll see what we're going to get. Could we add paste over this? Yeah. While this color is down, we could then take sparkle paste and go over just the purple layer so it's sparkly. So while the stencil's in place, we could take sparkle paste. Or maybe you want to do resist spray. So this is where, like, once you become comfortable with a tool, then you start like adding all the things of like, oh, I could add some distress spritz to this. Yeah, I could add this. Yeah, okay. So here's what we end up with. We end up with a cool shifted design. We have a color and we've shifted it. And not only did we shift down, but we actually shifted it over to where that fits perfectly in the next row, right? Cool. So fun, so simple. Does it have to be contrasting colors? No, it could be light green, dark green. You could ink every other one. I mean, the beauty of a shifter is once you become comfortable with that pattern, you just start playing. You can even fade out a shifter like I did here. So when I do a shifter, you don't always have to go the full thing. It just makes it really cool, just the way it's designed. And having those black lines, in my opinion, really help you see it. It just helps you see it more. And this is really, I mean, a shout out to Matt at Stampers Anonymous, because when I pitched this idea, like, I don't know how to get it all registered perfect. That's on him. He's the one that really makes shifters work. But the concept is like, this is what I want. I want to be able to do it and move it. But, you know, you have to do it like on this pattern where once you shift it, you know, you're shifting up and over a layer. Or in this case, I wanted a little space in between. So that's why that's a little gap. So your color is lined up here. It's a lot of fun. It's very cool to see designs with shifters. Oh, this is the one I was going to share with you. I love this one. I'm going to do this one real quick. It's candy. So this is like peppermint twist, but you could do I have a bats shifter? I don't. That would be cool though. Would be cool, but I do not have a bat one. That would be fun to have different bats. I mean, you could still take a stencil and obviously mask it. I mean, you get that, but there is something about, like, once you get into shifters, it is addicting, because you're like, I want to shift this, and I want hearts and stars. I have stars. I don't know if I have hearts. Okay, let's do some Halloween candy. This could be Christmas or Halloween, doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to take tiny tools. I have one dedicated for each color, so it just makes it easy. Yeah, let's do some orange. I'll just for the sake of this, I'm just going to take carved pumpkin, and this is, I mean, everyone is different, but for Christmas, oh my gosh, so much fun. Come on, so fun. Okay. So see, not every shifter takes a while. I mean, you guys wanted to see the scales, but really that's the most tedious one because it's linear and it has a bunch of little pokey bits, but I did it. All right, there's our first layer. Now we're going to take this. What's the first thing we do after we take it off besides look at our work? We clean off the stencil. Yep, doesn't take much. Sometimes if you're pretty quick, I just wiped it off with a dry cloth. Now I'm just going to, again, a little water on my paper towel. Now, even though technically, because I was going into black, I wouldn't have to clean it, but then that would just contradict everything that I said, okay? So here we're going to take this, and now we're going to shift it. Now, here's the other thing to point out. Because of the layout of a shifter, not every shifter is going to be a perfect match. For example, there's 4 candies. We're going to shift it, and we're going to be able to do more. So now after you do it, you would need to shift it again to hit that next one. You'll see what I mean in a second, okay? Does that, it should make sense in a minute. All right, so this one, I'm going to take this just to show you. I think I have to flip shift this one. I want to be careful when I say that. Can you grab me a black soot distress ink pad, please? Oh no, never mind. Thanks, Mario. See, as much as I want to just send you to get stuff, I really was, cool. I was planning. I was like, try to be prepared. Okay, technically, for the record, I should do this. I'm going to do this one in a different one, but I should do this like in another, I'm going to do it back in orange. You would shift it and do the same color. I'll show you what I mean in a second. This one's a little different. It took me a minute. Gosh, I haven't used these in so long. It took me a minute to kind of figure out what I'm even talking about. Okay, so I'm still doing orange because I'm actually doing a second row of the same candy. You'll see what I mean in a second. Okay. There we go. Done. Now we'll take it off. Okay, so now I have rows of candy. Make sense? So when I shift it, it just makes that offset. But I want to go in and add the next stripe. So I got to see if this is a shift or a flip. So what I mean by that is when I add this, no, I got to figure it out. Oh, is it this? No, it's this. Yes. No. How did I do this?
I don't know. I'm watching.
I'm trying to figure out what because I know I did the double. What did I do? What did I do? I love trying to figure it out in real time because if I shift it, but that's not how you shift it. How did I do this other one? I don't know. You know what I think? I don't think it's upside down. I don't. No, I mean you could. It would do a pinwheel, but is it upside? No, because see, it still matches. No,
upside down.
no, but that is upside down. But it's still the color. You need to get it to where that color is not. See, like if I turn it, that's really. I'll show you in a second. I just turned this. I just turned this one. I'll show you what I mean. This is ultimately, but I've got to remember how I did it. I think I might have used a circle stencil, if I'm being honest, but I'll have to go back and watch a Tim Holtz video to see how I did this. Okay. That's really what I'm going for. You see that? But I don't think it was designed to do that. So I want to say that I did a color of ink and a couple of paints. Twist the stencil. Yeah, I mean, that's what I did, but then well, I don't care. I'd just do one at a time, I guess. I think I'd have to do a twister shifter. That's like a twister shifter, Mr. Yeah, that's actually working for me. There you go. I might have done it a more efficient way in a previous video, but this is actually working for me. So what I'm doing, I'm just taking a section and I'm putting the opening part over the opening area where it's white, and I'm just going in with another color. Yeah, I'll ask Matt. Matt would be like, they were never meant to do that. Oh, okay. Well, guess what? If they weren't, I just figured it out in real time. This is cool. There's our little Halloween candies. Now I'm going to see if I have another stencil. Ooh, see, now the popcorn brain is going. Stand back. I wonder if that stencil's big enough. No. I would punch one out. So I would actually take like a circle one and then just go through with some grit paste sparkles. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take this, take some, or just sparkle paste, not grit paste. Let's do this. Okay, on one of those rows, twister shifter next release. Okay, so what I'm going to do on one of these rows that I did the double colors on, I'm just going to place this back where the orange part is showing. Right here. I'll just do this one row, and I'll take a little palette knife, if I have a clean one. I do. And let's add just a little sparkle. So this I'm just using sparkle paste as is, because if I have ink down, this is already going to be translucent, so I don't need to tint it. It's just going to make the orange part of this sparkle. And then this is already covered and that's already covered, so I don't have to worry about the paste. That's what I did in the previous one. Now I remember it was just more about adding the paste. Just going to add that little sparkle to that orange layer. We're going to lift that off and we're going to let it dry. Now, when this, and you could do this, obviously you can do it row by row, but when that dries, that orange now will be sparkly. I didn't need to tint it orange to make it sparkly orange because it is going to be translucent. So whatever's underneath it will sparkle. So it should look, well, it's going to look similar to this, not as intense because this was tinted, but it will give the orange part that great little sparkle. I think that's fun. Oh my gosh, I could just keep going. I absolutely love this creative play. You think about it, you rewind. I know we've gone just over 2.5 hours. And what did I tell you this morning, Mario, specifically? That's exactly
1 hour, 30 minutes tops.
That's exactly what I said to him this morning. He said, so how long do you think you're going to be? And I go, Mario, 1.5 hours tops. I got nothing to talk about. There's nothing new. I'll just give him a quick refresher and we'll be on our way for the rest of Saturday. And he's like, okay. And here we are 2.5 hours later, and I regret nothing because look what we've done. I mean, look at how these are drying with that sparkle. You can see it's not totally dry yet, still sparkling. Ooh, look at that with the stars. I mean, we've made some really cool stuff. Just some great backgrounds. We've done resist spray, we've done mica stain, we've done crayons, we've done great cleanup backgrounds, we've done that cool reptile skin, we've tinted pastes. We've learned that you don't want to blow your nose with a paper towel, right, Mel? Because it's sandpaper, and what to do on mica. It's just a good thing that all of these wonderful mica stains are back. And like I said before, if you can get your hands on the crayons, maybe the crayons are your jam because you want to create those pearlescent colors. They're only, like when they're gone, they definitely are not making a return. But yeah, so I can add those backgrounds to these backgrounds and then continue to make cards. But see, now you get like, oh, how was that background done? Oh, you saw it, see? Because I had that background done, it made for a really quick eat card with mica stain. Oh my gosh. So much fun. Love Distress Halloween.
1 hour, 30 minutes tops.